What do you know about the real guy Dracula, Scott?
I know a good amount actually. I know the day he died. I know that the year he died. I know that he was a history figure, a real person. I don't know if he was a bloodsucker or a Nosferatu, but he was definitely someone real.
You know that he was a vampire?
He's also known as Valid the Impaler.
Or invalid.
Yeah, invalid. Yes.
Tough to catch people from a fucking wheelchair, though, if you're a vampire. You need your feet. Although, no, you could just lure them to you, right?
Yeah, like Homer does in Near Dark.
Here so I can suck your blood.
I guess that works.
Do you remember Homer from Near Dark? He just lays on the side of the road with a bicycle wrapped around him, and everyone stops. They're like, "Oh, the poor little boy." And he's like, "Ah!" So, I mean,
That's funny. And it works. It does work. I mean, or you could just kill a bunch of Turks, just drink their blood. But I guess he's pretty wild. Vlad's a pretty wild guy. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you. Hot take. Ready?
All right.
I think Vlad the Impaler is more interesting than Dracula after reading a little bit about him. Like, the real guy is absolutely fascinating. And I wish I would have given myself like 2 more weeks with this material, because there is a lot of interesting shit about Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad the Second, or Vlad the Third. Which one was he? I don't remember. But he's got multiple brothers. Radu the Handsome was one of his brothers. Yeah. Very handsome. He might have been smoking the Sultan's pole. Rumor has it, but who knows?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Well, one of the cool things about him is all this shit about the vengeful Turks and killing Turks. By the way, they got the fall of Constantinople wrong. It's 1453. I think the movie says 1462, which is weird. But maybe they just mean, maybe they're just saying, that's happened already. Not necessarily that year, but the way they word it makes you think like they're saying that's when Constantinople fell. But anyway, and that was the Turks doing, by the way. But the thing about him is he was a hostage. Because his father, he was a hostage of the Turks with his brother Radu, and he was there for many years. And it's interesting because they're Muslims, and they didn't want him to convert because they probably could have got him to because he was just a kid, but they didn't want him to convert because they wanted a loyal Christian prince up there that they could control. Pretty clever,
like
right?
A puppet state.
It didn't work, but Wallachia is wild because Wallachia is now part of Romania, right? That it doesn't exist anymore. Romania, Târgovista, is that how you say it? Târgovista, one of the cities they're at. But it's a really cool history, man. I highly recommend it. And there was a lot of back and forth, like we're supporting the Sultan, we're not supporting the Sultan. Now, when you're Wallachia and you're in between Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, in fact, Wallachia is surrounded by empires, right? The Austro-Hungarian Empire, then you got the fucking Russian Empire out, and then you got the Ottoman Empire below you. You're surrounded by massive power structures all around you. So you're constantly being used in this tug of war. And I'll tell you what, man, Dracula's life was pretty rough. Like, captured as a kid, was reportedly scourged many times for his rebellious behavior. Unlike Radu, who was sort of taken in and always stayed, I think, loyal to the Sultan. I don't really remember his whole story, but think about your life as a prince in a very small part of modern day Romania, surrounded by Hungary, and Hungary's Christian. That's the one thing, and then having alliances with Hungary, not having an alliance with Hungary, trying to hide in Moldavia, trying to hide over here, trying to on the run, all this shit, man. It's just, and then to have actual victories over massive forces of Turks is no small task. So Dracula, the Christian, I guess he would have been Orthodoxy, although there's some contention there. We'll talk about that, but he was quite the warrior, and I think that's a fascinating tale. He was married twice. He did have some kids. I did meet somebody once with the last name of Tepes, Tepes.
That's rad.
I asked them where they were from, and they said that they said that they have family from Eastern Europe, and I said that's super interesting. Did you know X? And they were like, yeah. And I said, oh, cool. It was a very brief conversation, but they probably thought I was a weirdo. And so yeah, I'm sure the bloodline's out there somewhere. So pretty neat. But the order of Dracula, like we're going to talk about in the beginning of this movie here, was a real fraternity of knights that were actually created by the Hungarians. The Hungarian king at the time, Sigismund or some shit, was like, boom, you guys are knights. You're going to be defenders of Christ against the encroaching fucking heathens. Because that's what they were doing at the time, encroaching. Just ask Constantinople if you don't believe me. And
right.
and everywhere else.
Everywhere else.
And it was it's a wild tale. This warrior guy is a really cool tale. Married twice, like I said. So the thing about his orthodoxy or Catholic faith, he's a Christian regardless. Is he Orthodox? Is he Catholic? They were saying because of where he was positioned, he probably, there's some historians think he wanted it ambiguous. Maybe they thought because diplomatically it'd be good to be Orthodoxy in dealing with the East. Diplomatically it'd be good to be Catholic when dealing with the West. So he I think he wanted that ambiguity, but his second wife was in fact Catholic. So some people think he was Catholic. Yeah. Although in this movie, it seems pretty Orthodoxy. I don't know much about Orthodoxy Christianity, but it was very much, just the look of it doesn't look like a Catholic situation. It looks very Eastern, right?
They look like the Russian patriarch.
Yeah,
they're dressed very similar. Yeah. So I mean, that's what I would have thought anyhow.
Yeah, for sure. But it is I mean, it's just a fascinating tale about a guy who probably had a really. I mean, think about it. You're the son of a prince. Your father is deposed. He's murdered. His fucking eyes are burned out. Your other brother's killed. You know, you're on the run. You're the slave. For all intents and purposes, he's a slave. And when his dad got called back to pay tribute, he was murdered. Just all this stuff. So he's squirrely as fuck, and he's not sure. And there is a lot of rich history here that I wish I knew more about, but it made me very interested in this guy. I know very little about the Far East at the end of the medieval period. This is also the sort of the end of a lot of my interest in the medieval period. Once Constantinople falls, I'm kind of like, well, welcome to the Renaissance, which I know dick about, you know.
Yeah.
Muskets.
That's my wheelhouse.
Rapiers, fucking paintings and shit, you know.
Yeah. Statues of naked dudes.
Statues of dudes with fucking little elephant dicks.
Cool furniture.
Cool furniture. Yeah, exactly.
Vaulted ceilings, flying buttresses, and a lot of
flying
cathedrals.
buttresses. Exactly. And then you get to the Victorian age and cowboys in America and people in top hats in Europe, I guess. But which we see a clash of that here. That's why I really like the Quincy character. I like the Texan, like the American dude, like with the knife kicker. And the fuck. Yeah. He does the rolling lever action, cool Arnold trick, which Arnold did a year before. Arnold beat you to it. Arnold always wins, that fucker. But was it 91? I think T2 is 91. But,
92, right?
Was it 92 as well?
No.
I think it's 92.
91.
91? Damn.
Great movies from 90 to 94.
Yeah, great stuff to grow up with.
But so I guess my point is just the primer on Vlad the Impaler himself is an interesting thing to note. Obviously terrible if the whole forest of people that you see when he impales all these people. That's some real shit. And they said it went on for like 2 miles, and it really sapped the will of the invading Turks. They weren't too happy to see people getting birds nesting in their countrymen's entrails
in their chest. And
tweet.
They don't tell you is a lot of them were left alive when they did it.
Indeed.
So that so they would just hear the screams and their cries for help.
Imagine what that
imagine like. hundreds of people just piked out on your front yard.
Think what that
to send a message.
Like.
Oh, it must have been awful. Must have been awful. What's it smell, man? I don't know. Oh, it could be my lawn ornaments.
My wailing, bleeding lawn ornaments. Armaments. Dum.
Yeah,
but Bram Stoker's Dracula, this is a different tale. It touches upon that, which I like, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get a lot of good information from Aja, who just finished reading the book again. I read it a long time ago, so I don't remember it, other than I know that the part about him being a Christian knight or prince rather, is not probably in the book much, right? His campaigns against the Turks, is that discussed in the book?
It is.
A little bit.
Yeah.
When Jonathan goes to see him.
Yeah, when they
Yeah.
talk and he talks about his history, which is completely inaccurate. Bram Stoker was really just piecing together the cool tidbits of history from the area
Makes
that
sense.
he found.
Right, which is why. What do you remember any of the history they said in the book?
Oh, I don't remember specifics.
That's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you just finished it. It's so much to remember, a whole book, as it were. But so there's a couple of ways I want to tackle this tonight. Is obviously talking about the history. We can't help ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So
No, I
talking
can't.
about it, and I'm just really like lens pulled way back, high level, just to give you an idea as to where they were. Right there, it wasn't. I don't think he wasn't in Transylvania. He was in Targovista, which is a part of this place called Wallachia, which is a part of modern day Romania. So he is Romanian, as it were, but it wasn't called Romanian at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Maybe, but I could be wrong about that. But I think it was Hungary and Moldavia and Bulgaria.
Wallachia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wallachia was there. But no, it's a really it's a fascinating tale about the true story about this guy and his position in history and where he was and how difficult of a life he was born into. Just bloodshed, constant bloodshed. Because think about this: you're a young man when the Turks destroy Constantinople and take it over, and you're really close to that, and you're Christian.
Yeah. That's
You're in for a tough fucking existence.
we can't sympathize with any kind of like mass loss of that like religious like holy place. I mean, some people with the Notre Dame burning down in Paris.
Yeah, that was a
people
big deal.
freaked out about that, and even even people I know who weren't really religious. Like I'm not really religious, but I was like, damn, architecture that lasts 1,000 years burned down because of like the stupidest little mistake, and all that history lost because
Some
of
jerk off vaping.
yeah, right, or
I
someone
don't know
like
what it was actually. But
they could have been just like some materials that were caustic just caught on fire. They're still not quite sure, but I could see why. Like, imagine now this is Constantinople, Istanbul. You want you can call it Byzantium. It's all the same city. It's a really important city for humanity, for all of civilized humanity.
sure.
And to have it be Christian since the Christian religion came on, and then all of a sudden 1,000 years later, it's sacked by non-Christians. That must have blew their mind at the time. Like, what did we do to God for God to let our holy city get sacked by heathens? In their words, the loss must have been catastrophic. Like when Rome was sacked the first time.
A lot of plague going on at the time too.
Yes.
In fact, I think that's how the Hungarian dude, I forget his name. Fuck. I think that's how he died. Because during one of the Hungarian kings or princes who ended up hated Dracula, liked Dracula, more like hunted Dracula, allied with Dracula, hunted Dracula, allied. I think at the end they were an alliance, but he died after the Turks sieged where he was. They repelled the siege, but he died of the plague as a result, because sieges often brought upon plagues. So to go back to your point about this crisis of faith for these people, they're thinking, what have we done to this affront to God? This is why Constantinople falls. This is why the Black Death is upon us. This is why, right? So I'm sure it was a very horrifying time to be alive with the knowledge that you had at the time. And
you're also coming into the time where feudalism is kind of puttering out. That way of life and our civilization is puttering out. And capitalism comes on because of the middle class, and people are, because of the Black Death directly. Without the Black Death, you wouldn't have been able to get better wages for your work, and all of a sudden it established a middle class, and capitalism came along with it. But that was the 1400s, the mid 1400s is a really transitional period between those two massive sets of how our societies are run, and that unsteadiness of, am I going to have food this winter? Or am I going to die? That's all something that would have been in their head as well.
Yeah, and had been in everyone's heads for a long time, outside of a very lucky few. Yeah. Forever, the medieval world was rough, obviously, hot take, but all of this rich history, and Bram Stoker comes along, and I don't even know what year, and he decides, I'm going to write a fucking crazy book. Tell us a little bit about the book, Masha.
Well, where do I begin? It was published in 1897, but there's been some discussion on
400 years later.
Yeah, what year it's actually set in, and I think the book is set in 93 instead of 97, like the movie. And he was just kind of reading things of the era, and there was a lot of this like, Europeans traveling to these eastern parts and writing, collecting the tales of the folk stories of the area, and then like these exotic, exciting tales from lands that you've never seen yourself.
Indeed.
And what I came out realizing was like, I always thought that Bram Stoker pretty much invented the sophisticated vampire. But he didn't. There's something almost 80 years earlier than that, which is The Vampire with a Y by
Right.
John William Polidori.
And that's in the early 1800s.
1819.
1819.
Damn.
With a character called Lord Ruthven.
Lord Ruthven?
Ruthven.
How do you spell it?
Ruthven.
Ruthven. Good
Yeah.
name.
It's a good
Hell yeah.
name.
Huh. So that's a cool idea, right? So think about Stoker for just a minute. Locomotives, railways, people are starting to travel. People are starting to see places they'd never seen before. In the 1400s, you couldn't travel like this, right? There was no,
Yeah, not at
to
all.
move all the way, and going around the Carpathian Mountains and everything else. But this whole idea of Europeans becoming traveled and picking up folk tales along the way is fascinating. Think of the things that we take for granted from a knowledge perspective, the shit we can just look up on the internet. We're fond of saying this, but it bears repeating here. And that's just this idea of, think of the shit they were experiencing for the first time. Like, what did they have to do to know? Like, wow, this is a crazy tale. So back to the book, Stoker collects all this folklore and he pens this epistolary novel, as it were, written via letter.
Yep.
Not much. There's some letters, but it's mostly journals.
Journal
Yeah,
entries.
Yep.
journal
yes.
entries. Yeah.
Yep. I actually was able to find an interview by Bram Stoker, which was interesting. I think it's the only one still existing. I'm sure he gave more, but he was just asked about the if there's any historical basis for the legend, and he's like, just kind of briefly explaining what he pictures as like these actual folk tales, which I would love to share some of the
Please
actual
do.
stories. There's so many, and some even on this like 21st century people in there still have their beliefs. But
Do you have one in particular you're looking for, or
in particular story,
like a folk you said you wanted to share?
there's a bunch, but just like these beliefs and where it came from and how it then spread first to Europe and then America. And I'm sure you've heard of the New England vampire panic,
Yeah, a little bit.
the Mercy Brown story and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the story just builds and forms and travels and takes new forms, and then somebody writes about it, and like how vampires were just these terrifying beastly creatures occupying your loved one's body, or like just the spirit of your loved one dying and coming back to feed on the family members. There was no like suave, like no charm going on. But
So
then
who invented that?
that would be probably Polidori.
Ruthven.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
first example of that. And then I came across a book called Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu.
That's right, Carmilla. Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is like a lesbian vampire story.
I believe so.
From 1871. That's pretty
Awesome.
impressive.
super progressive for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Anne Rice came along in the 90s. I mean, way later. That's way later. But largely a very respected in her as vampire mythos goes. Anne Rice is way up there as one of the greats, I think you would say. You know, people talk when people talk about vampires, they talk about the same few people. Think how crazy that is. these vampire tales, I don't know when the earliest one recorded. I'm sure this tale has transformed from something biblical to something else, to something else, to something else. But how many authors do people actually go, oh, if you say who wrote vampire books, you could probably only think of like 3 or 4. Even though if you go to the horror section and you just start perusing the bookstore, you'll probably find 1 billion vampire books. But it just shows you how difficult it is to stand out. This is now a commentary on the literary world, which I don't want to get into. But think about that. You're like, okay, Anne Rice, but Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, right? And I mean, and think about people like Anne Rice, or even people who the fuck wrote Twilight.
Stephanie Meyer.
Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah.
Like, she's written more words than Stoker did about Dracula, about vampires. How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you're a fan. I don't know. I don't want to shit on it because it's adolescent and whatever. I liked my fucking Expanding Universe Star Wars books. And believe me, when you go back and read them, they're pretty adolescent, although they're well written. I didn't find Stephanie Meyer's prose particularly engaging, but that's just my personal opinion. Yeah. But no, it's interesting to think about that. The story of Dracula, that's just the one. That's the one that took off. It's the one. Why?
I don't know. It came at the right time and people were fascinated by it. And it just built this archetype of the character that didn't really exist as strongly before. And the whole like history of vampires, as for the Romanian, it does originate in that region.
Really?
It does, yeah. Like and it's pre-Christianity, although there's many of these demon-like entities from ancient history, like Mesopotamian, Babylonian.
Yeah. Going back to Pazuzu.
Yeah, where you can kind of think of them as vampires, but they're not described exactly the same. Like the vampire that we picture today when you say that word originates in the Eastern European region.
Yeah. What's like
go ahead, Masha.
No, like the earliest recorded cases are from like 1700s.
Got it.
Yeah.
So the vampire mythos of today is post Judeo-Christian, but the similarities to what we know as vampires predates Judeo-Christian.
It's tough to say.
Because it's so different, right?
Yeah, the beliefs in the area have been for however long.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know because there's no written history of that of that time.
Well,
Scott,
that's like
go ahead.
With like the Wendigo. Is considered skinwalkers are considered in the same branch as vampires, because what do? They feed on the living and they change their shape, just like Dracula has the ability to change his shape in several different shapes. In this, it's something that like I think all cultures have, and I think this one kind of really stuck out. You know, this one really is really like the person who has that kind of gravitas and who is you know, he worked for the church. He was part of the group of the dragons there. What were they called again? I'm sorry.
Order
you
of
said it earlier.
Dracula.
Yeah, the Order of the Dragons. Basically a holy order for Christ, and he's tainted. And he becomes a demon. That's something really cool. That's something really different, and I think that's why it stuck out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's a great way to say it, right? Because there's something... So I'm sure... And I know we had some listener comments, quite a few, on this idea of terrifying versus suave seems to be, on its surface, a type of vampire lore or mythos debate, right? Do you prefer the bestial creatures or do you prefer the suave debonair types? And I always suggest that the suave debonair types are in fact bestial. That's what makes them so scary.
Yes, and if you want just beasts, then go for werewolves.
You could.
Yeah.
You could make a compelling werewolf story too, though, and I think, and I'm still waiting for one. I think there's a lot of. I think that's an untapped market. I think you could make a good werewolf tale. I mean, that's a stupid thing to say because I'm going to get letters about American Werewolf in London and everything else. And yes, but I mean, I think the mythos could be expanded upon, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it has been in some mediums, but
Underworld.
don't you?
But
So
like one thing
serious.
I wanted to see and I never saw, and we've talked about this before, Dean, is a werewolf in the medieval times. It just doesn't exist. You don't hear about it, and I would love to see it. I would love to see like
Indeed.
Renaissance werewolf going crazy. and it's untapped. It'd be really interesting because you see a vampire in that time and it works really well. I think it would work as well.
I think Wolfman with Del Toro is Victorian.
I never saw that.
I didn't either, sadly. But I like the idea of going even before that. You know, Life by Torchlight. You could make could make a good. I feel like you could do Werewolf in the Jaws fashion. I've mentioned this on the show before. You could do the Jaws movie in the 1400s, but a werewolf, and you could do it as a small town. Like, don't go like the woods are the ocean. The werewolf is the shark. The shark.
Like
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think you could do something like that. That would be super compelling. In with the reduction in technology, it becomes a scarier tale. I think you could shoot it. I think it would be a really cool project for a DP to shoot it in low light, using a lot of torchlight, like they did in, say, The Northman. There's a lot of great torchlit scenes in that. But I think that would work. And I think you could have, I don't know. I think that would be kind of neat. You could couch it in some other grand idea. But as far as vampires go, I think what makes vampires especially compelling and or scary at the same time is one of the reasons that I think ultimately this movie is very successful to me. I didn't like this movie when I first saw it because I couldn't get, Gary Oldman was nobody to me at the time. I actually came back to Dracula, but experienced Gary Oldman in other forms before that. I came back to him after seeing Gary Oldman and other things after, but I'll be honest, I don't think, I don't know, man. I think I struggled with artsy stuff when I was a lot younger, and there's no doubt a very operatic bend to this that's very artsy and very otherworldly. And I think that there were some of those moments where I was like, oh, I don't know. There was tons of imagery that I loved. I thought was fascinating in this movie when I first saw it, but I wasn't completely sold on this idea when I first saw it. I remember kind of making fun of it. I was a kid. I was fucking 16. I remember, you know, and it made me squirm. And then in my early 20s, you know, after you experience drama with the opposite sex, did I then start to understand the movie a little bit more from that angle and appreciate it a little bit? And it's funny because I'm sitting on the couch with my dear wife Maja, and we're watching this the other day, and I was like, man, this fucking dude just stealing this guy's wife. Like I want that romance to like hit me. But then I'm just like, man, this fucking dude stealing Keanu's husband, like you're stealing his girl with your magic, bitch. Fuck. And you're sneaky too. Like I was like, dude, Jonathan, like make fun of Keanu all you want because he's the national treasure now, right? I bet he didn't anticipate that. He's a national treasure. He can do no wrong.
Fucking bad in
He
this.
takes pictures showing his hand behind girls. Like he doesn't play. He's like, I'm not getting scandalized. I'm not going to get fucking me too. And I'm not going to get fucking. So. And I just thought about it. I'm watching it this time and I'm like, I want this, like that feeling. Cause you know, when, if you've been in a situation where you like somebody and there was somebody else or like whatever, that feeling, that's when you're 20, you feel that. And I felt that watching it at the time, but watching it again, I was like, dude, this like wonderful wife, happily married. I'm like, if some magic fucking dude was like coming to steal my wife, I'd be so fucking magic guy. Fuck this magic guy.
Suave man from Romania.
This fucking magic bitch. I'd stake his ass too.
Because I've always been like, oh yeah, I would go for Dracula, of course. But now
exactly.
Watching it, I was like, I feel so torn. I don't know what to do here.
You feel like she did. She's like, oh, I'm gonna put the glove on your face.
I mean, if you were the Dracula, then yes. But
fair enough. But no, I appreciate that. But no, it's funny because it was like, you know, you're watching and I'm like Quincy dies for this shit. Like Quincy fucking Homewood, Cary Elwes. I'll always love him. Princess Bride is like in my heart of hearts, right? All these dudes. The Doctor, he's kind of a creep. I think he's trying to slip it in, you know, behind the Man in Black's back, you know?
He's in the friend zone.
Yeah, of course. And then And then the Texan's like, I don't care. I fuck, dude. Like, I'll get the
like, "Let's
next
go."
rich fucking. Look at me. I'm beautiful. That's that's outrageous O'Connor from Star Trek. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 245. I'm from Texas. All these European girls are gonna
I have
want
a
to fuck
fucking
me. Let's go.
Bowie knife.
Yeah.
I know how to use it. I have a rifle. I tamed the West. I killed the Red Man. That's his whole thing. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that's what he did.
So let's be honest with the thing that really made you uncomfortable was his double bouffant haircut.
It's brutal.
It's really
But not
bad.
just that. Let me finish this rant real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
when Keanu is riding his horse hard and killing guys with a fucking saber, killing these fucking Romanies, or I'll fucking die. I'm getting my wife back. And this fucking sneaky coward, he turns into a fucking fog and he slips into her bed. He goes to the girl's house. Well, this guy's killing your men, you bitch. You're not even there for your fucking men. No wonder the Turks won. I was so beside myself with anger. Listen, you knew whatever the stance was supposed to be. I was going to principally take the opposite for fun. Mr. Steal Your Girl, your men are dying. Where's your leadership? God damn it. They're getting stabbed by a motivated Keanu. He's like, take that. Oh, my accent. Oh, I'll get you, Wilhelmina Mary. Oh. Fucking God bless him. After being held prisoner.
Hair.
And like Monica fucking Bublucci, whatever fucking her name is, you know, they're sucking his nipples, blowing them, fucking them all night. And eventually he's like, all right, I'm done. I'm getting killed there. I got to get back to my wife.
He's like, you got to slow down in the draining me. I'm trying to really enjoy
He got
this.
mouth
but
raped. Nobody talks about it.
But I'm going to die by the morning if you keep fucking draining me.
Fucking Transylvanian me too, this fucking poor kid. Yeah, his
Nobody
attackers
believes
were
him because he's a man.
Yes. Do you think the story will fly in your papers in your hometown? It won't.
They're going to think you're a coward. You couldn't handle 3 beautiful, sexy vampire women.
Yes. They're going to say you like boys, like my brother, Redu the Handsome.
We know why we call him handsome now.
Yep. He liked salt and brick, I guess.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, no. So my point is this. I just wanted to bring that part of it up because it did occur to me at a few points where I was like, man, poor Keanu, his fucking hair went white, gray. I know what that's like, right? Meanwhile, this sneaky fuck sneaks
Fucking
to her house.
You're
Goes
vapor
right to her-
invader.
Oh, man.
But he crossed oceans of time.
Oceans of time.
Dude, he is like that guy who was like on that TV show on VH1 where he's that like the pickup artist guy who had like the labret piercing and the big like furry hat. He's the guy who just knows how to steal your women from you and pick up women.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I bet everybody who went to see this in the theater was real nervous about what did you call his hair, Scott?
His double bouffant. It's fucking terrible, dude.
Dude, every goth in 92, and there was a boatload of them, was like, this can't be what this guy looks like the whole movie. Right?
Like,
Oh,
man,
I felt that way when I first saw it. I was like, oh, I was hoping for like a hot Dracula, and half of the movie, I'm like, I really like this movie, but then when he busts out of the coffin all young and hot, I'm like, okay, here we go.
There you go.
Contrary to popular belief, vampires can move about by day. Their powers are weak. Sorry, I'm doing it like Bela Lugosi. I'm doing it like Martin Landau playing Bela Lugosi in
Oh my
Ed
God.
Wood. Wrap his arms around him. Looks like he's killing you. Anyway, so I thought a lot about that this time around, right? I thought about, man,
It's
he's
funny.
stealing this girl with his fucking magic.
It's funny how years and like life experiences change how you look at something that once never even registered to you.
Yeah. But in my defense, I mean, in the movie's defense, if Maja had some boyfriend and like we were talking, I was like, oh, unrequited love. Oh, I'd be like, yeah, Dracula, no one understands, man.
Yeah, we knew hundreds of years ago in a previous life.
Yeah, it's very, can I say it?
Yeah.
It's a little adolescent, that thing, isn't it? Just a touch.
It is.
Little
It
bit.
is, and the whole appeal for vampires. There is a little bit of an adolescent touch to it because I was like, I wondered
True.
what makes them so alluring.
Great question.
And the thought of them being like somebody who has lived for hundreds of years, for you to be so special that they want you. That's the whole. That's a big part of it, but it is a bit of an adolescent thought.
You're great. You just described every narcissist's playbook, right? They make you feel like you're the only person that exists, of course, on their terms, and then they'll promptly disappear at a moment's notice.
Dude.
But that's the thing, right? That's it. What she just described is such a great perspective because it's such a woman's perspective, if I may be so bold, and I appreciate that, which is this dude has been around since Jesus Christ has moment of doubt and pain. Hoo-hoo. And he likes you. That makes you pretty fucking special. That's a powerful aphrodisiac, I think.
He's the ultimate love bomber. You know, he's just telling you you're the only girl for him. You know?
He is the
It's
ultimate
true.
love bomber.
It's true.
Dude, this guy dropped
you're
a
so
fucking
special,
Hiroshima-sized love bomb on you. Boom.
You're so special to me. I've crossed the ocean of time for you. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That dude. So what? But back to her question. Why? What do you think, Scott?
Why is he so alluring?
Vampires. Do you want to talk about the greater mythos? Like, why are vampires alluring to a lot of people who are vampire fans, of which I count myself among them?
I can tell you real quick, at least in my vision.
What's your thought process?
Immortality. Something that we can never grasp. We all truly want. We don't want to die. No one wants to die. We all want to live on. I mean, imagine
Pause.
if everyone you knew.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you right on that, but because I want you to answer this question before you get too far past it.
All right.
But were you concerned about death at 21 when you loved vampires? Was that a factor in your 20s? Because when you're in your 20s, you don't think you're ever going to die. At least I didn't.
Well, yes, because I always, I'm the broody one of my friends, and so like
Yeah,
I was
get
always
that too.
obsessed with the macabre, and Dracula being able to escape that and see things that I will never see was something that was always something I really wanted to have. Not that I wanted to live forever per se, but I wanted to be like, well, I want to see where humanity goes in 500 years. Why can't I be the weirdo in the red robe and bouffant hair in a castle somewhere, living slowly through time and being forgotten that I was once a powerful leader of men, and now I'm an old man, a doddering old man. I think for me that's the allure for me, was that he escapes death, and time
That's
is
super advanced in your early 20s, I'll be honest. And I'm impressed. I think that's a pretty cool take, because I thought about the same thing, and that's not the case for me. I think it was just he was desirable and powerful, which I think you want in your 20s. I think you want forever, really.
yeah.
He
really
was
do.
desirable and powerful, and not the power over others. I never had a romantic gesture. I never had a romantic feeling about wanting to command legions. That's never been my goal. My goal has always been that through the empowerment of myself, I deny others power over me. And that's why I love shit like mafia movies. I'm like, nobody fucks with this guy, right? Although they have power over people, but that's a different part of it. But when you're adolescent, I think power, and this is very much a male perspective, right? So power to not be fucked with, power to be desirable, to have a say, and to be like, no, nobody fucking tells Dracula what to do. Nobody. Who tells Dracula what to do? Zero people. And Dracula does the fuck Dracula wants. Now, in a bad way too. Like he deeply against my own principles. He robs people of their liberty and freedom by enslaving them or harming them or whatever. But that allure is, imagine being that powerful. And I will say this, Scott, to your point, there were points where I thought it would be cool. It would, but I was always thought about it backwards. Like, it would have been cool to have been alive in the 1700s and alive today, and what that perspective was like. But it never occurred to me that I was that this fantasy of power meant the power over my own mortality. That, not until I was in my late 20s, early 30s that I go, I'm going to die someday. I mean, I did when I was 8. But in your 20s, when your body's perfect, you can run for 4 fucking days, your dick's hard 24/7, you can do 1,000 pull-ups and push-ups. You're like, I'm never dying, dude. I'll fight anybody. I don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever. So I never was worried about that. Like, I was never like, oh, I won't die if I'm a vampire. I was always like, I'll be more powerful and desirable. That was my thing. Like I love that. I like to draw people in. Like, I like that idea. Like, that's sexy, you know?
Yeah, I could see that when you were younger, that being your perceptive, or perception. I agree with it. The power thing is a real thing, and I love the fact that he holds dominion over everyone he interacts with.
And the beasts.
Yes, he has control over anything he wants, and that's something cool. It's something foreign to our everyday life because we are all slaves to something. We all sacrifice something for something else, and Dracula does not do that.
It's funny, and I want to make sure, and I know what you're saying is 100% true and accurate, and I don't want to, but I want to be clear to not conflate. I didn't want power over stuff. I wanted enough power to where people have power over me. Right.
Yes, you can have dominion over yourself completely.
Correct. It like a self-sovereign way, self sovereignty that was undeniable.
I think for me it was that big shocker. I felt like an outsider as a kid.
Yes,
and then there was this thing that was an outsider but powerful, and that was the allure for me of like, oh, I could as a vampire, you could completely embrace that otherness and be weird and still have like this power that you described, and all these crazy abilities and that. But the thing about immortality is it's so difficult to grasp. I thought about like, the not dying, that would, of course, amazing. But is it really? Because I think it's very much romanticized, like how the effect of pass of time would actually impact you if you just keep existing and existing. And I think it's the romanticized part is that it's as if vampires become so cultured and they appreciate these finer things in life. But is that really what would happen to somebody? It's
such a great observation because that, I think, is one of the successes of the beginning of this movie, is seeing this recluse who time just keeps moving. This guy's in 14 whatever. It's 400 years later. This dude's still like in this castle alone, a monster. And I think that's something the movie does well. But to your question, what do you think, Scott?
I think that's an interesting point where it's hard because I'm like the book nerd. I'm the guy who would like be down in the lab, like completely okay with just being alone and writing and reading. And I also have this weird nihilistic thing where I have this like thought in my head where, what's the point? We do all these things, we learn all these things, we be better people, we try to fix our relationships, fix ourselves to be better people throughout the day than we were the day before. And what's the end goal? To just die. So like that's where my allure for the immortality comes from, where you're constantly working on yourself and constantly fixing and hoping you enjoy the finer things and be cultured and learn more about humanity and things of that sort. But Maja brings up at a very interesting point where I would probably become the fucking crazy loony double bouffant red robe wearing weirdo who lives in a castle by himself, because
for sure
I have those tendencies and I'm mortal. I mean, maybe like, not the robe, but I definitely like spending a lot of time by myself.
The more exposed you are to something, wouldn't you just eventually become numb? And then you're seeking for a higher and higher thrill, and you'll end up a monster.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I was gonna say, like, that's the only problem with, like, think of what does it take to make Dracula come after 400 years? Like, how perverse and weird and erotic would you have to get for him to be like even interested in sex?
Yeah. I mean, it's the Pornhub problem, I think.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In 1800s, you showed an ankle, that was it. Guys were heading off the closet to rub one out. now
Yeah.
they're seeing people do all kinds of crazy shit, and it doesn't even affect them. So,
Dude,
it's
I'm
very
off
strange.
it right now. I'm off it. I'm in a cooling off period of porn. I'm not watching it. I'm not watching it all in November.
Hell yeah, I appreciate that.
It's a weird effect on your brain chemistry. I'm doing self experiments, but we won't get into that because I don't want to embarrass everyone here, but myself included. But Baja challenges the assumption that you would become this cultured thing, and I love that. And it's something I think we've arrived at in discussion in the past, which is just how do you write an elf? We've talked about this many times. How do you write Elrond? He's 3,000. How can you even fathom that, right? So the way time passes for you is, oh, there's a problem in this human kingdom, and you just go, I'll take a nap. And then that guy will been dead for 30 years, and then it's just passed. I don't care, right? It is a very valid question, and I think a movie that tackles it well, and a TV show that is Highlander, because outside of all of this culture, think of how hard it would be to watch everyone you know die.
But
Just
that's
thinking
where
about it makes the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. Thinking about my nephew Dylan as an old man is tweaks me the fuck out. Imagine your own kid. So think about Ripley. Her daughter dies, outages her and dies. Like, that's fucked up. And I think that would start to cause you not just like, what's it gonna? I have to, not just like I need a fucking, chain wrapped around my cock while I'm in an Iron Maiden to come. But like, I think not just that, but everything. Right, with the exception of the one thing you can see, which is the sun come up. Right, that amazing moment in when Louis sees the sun come up in a movie theater. Fucking awesome. But Anne Rice tackles this question pretty strongly in her trilogy. Yeah. But no, this idea is fascinating because what would it be like to see people and when I see. Imagine people dying. Your head starts to go to maybe people your age and certainly people older. Like thinking about my mom dying, my dad dying. All that shit sucks, right? That's a fucking shitty feeling, sinking feeling. And then you start going like, what about my innocent, sweet nephew just becoming an old man and dying and you watching that? That's fucked up. I don't even like saying it. So like, take a vampire, for instance. And me and Scott just played Hunt with him the other day. I'm like, fucking 16 reflexes. Little fucker. Yeah,
he's way faster than all of us.
There's one to the northeast, headshot dead. I'm like, fuck you.
Like, we didn't even turn the camera around. We're just like, what?
I'm like, where's the mouse? So fucking grandpa. But anyway, it is, I think that would really start to have a profound effect on you. And then I think, and I think that's what would make it really difficult. I think as a vampire, you'd continuously check in on like generations of that's a cool story. A vampire that's like from the 1400s that's still checking in on his kids, right? But think about watching them go like every time. You would just be numb to that. You'd be numb to, I mean, sex is already sort of an afterthought for vampires, really, because the bite is everything, right? The feeding, the blood.
Not really about the coupling.
And then it's like, how much do you think? I think you could learn a lot, but I think travel. I think vampires are travel prohibitive. It's dangerous to travel. You could get picked off during the day, right? You're going to go on a train back in the day. You can't. We see True Blood try to tackle this. They stick them in coffins, put them on jetliners. But how do you? Traveling is not easy. Vampires are territorial creatures. They stake out a territory. They make their domain. They control it. They know everyone that comes in and out of it. They hunt it. And to travel is to brush elbows with other creatures like you. And now you got a whole fucking different problem. So I think it would be a very difficult life, a very challenging way to not live, but exist.
Couple things with the traveling with Dracula. He has to travel. He has to sleep in his native dirt.
Yeah.
So imagine now you say you went to the New World and you're on your way and the boat sinks and you survive. But now how do you get home to get your dirt? Can you recharge? Can you? No, I'm just, you know what I mean? Like would you wither without your dirt? Yeah. Or even if you made it to America, now you're like, oh, I got to book passage back home to get more dirt or send home. But can you sleep? Can you recharge until that? And
Yeah.
the other thing I was thinking about was like vampires. I think you're right about I think losing your people, your people that you grew up with, the first generation of your people, would break you so bad that you might become the recluse. You know, you might be like, I'm
Yeah.
done. You would be so guarded because that you would not be able to. I mean, it's hard enough to see the people that are older that we lose. You know, that are
Indeed.
our parents, our grandparents, or what have you. But watching your nephew or my nephew or my niece, you know, I watched them being born and now they're gone because I've outlived them, would fuck with my head so
It'd
bad.
fuck with
So
your
it's
head.
yeah,
Yeah, because
Now, go ahead, Masha. You go first.
because you're still originally a human with a human psyche.
yeah,
How you can't comprehend how you'd survive these effects, and that's one of the alluring things about vampires too, is that you are still like there's the human side.
That's the
left.
Louis conundrum in all
Yes,
the Rice novels.
which is
Yeah.
what I love.
It's a great point because all these other monsters, a lot of them are just fucking monsters. Ghosts were people, but they're kind of like people adjacent. The soul is drifted on, right? A vampire is still physically, I guess a werewolf is too, but when you transform, you're not really the same. A vampire, you kind of look the same. You lose all your blemishes. There's no blood in your body. You look paler, all this other shit. But yeah, you're right. Your human psyche is going to be really, and I think, again, this gets back to the Anne Rice stuff because I think she tackles this idea very well when you take a jaded Lestat who's much older than a younger Louis, who is not, Louis can't shed his mortal coil. That's his whole problem.
he
Problem
holds
as far
to
as
his
Lestat
humanity.
is concerned.
yeah.
Lestat isn't even that much older than Louis.
I know.
It's like 150
but
years
he's
or something.
but
Yeah.
but in that time, but think about that amount of time, what he went through and what Louis didn't go through. But it is
Wait, no, I'm completely wrong because Lestat's father is alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He helps.
It's
he
not
helps take care of him.
It's,
Yeah.
it's like 50 years, if that, 30.
50. Yeah, I don't remember,
Yeah.
but in Lestat, I think is just a more evil person, generally speaking.
Well, he just relented with his humanity. His humanity. Once he became the vampire, he was okay with it. He was like, "This is what I have to do from now on." Where Louis balked at every turn to lose his humanity. He didn't want to. It was something he thrived to hold on to,
Right.
and that's
Getting
something.
back-
It's something very different compared to Lestat.
Right. Getting back to what you guys were talking about, watching not just your contemporaries and your peers die, but the people much younger than you are now, your kids' kids, your nephew's kids, what that would do to as Maj put it, your human psyche would be pretty irreversible. Now, let's spin this back into Dracula and let me reverse my position for fun. So now I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. Masha, my wife, is not. Masha dies. 400 years later, I see a spitting image of her. I would cut the bloodiest swath of destruction to her that you could possibly fucking imagine. So I get it. I get Dracula's position too, right? And I'm not going to just beat up on it because I love this movie, for the record. I think it's fantastic. And in Gary Oldman is so phenomenal when he sees that photo of Mina.
Mina.
And he's completely taken aback. It's an exact look. And this is something repeated. I think, Fright Night does this, which is hilarious. Jerry Dandridge is just like, it looked just like her. But I've just destroyed your car, Charlie.
Charlie.
Car, Charlie. I'll be coming over whenever I want, with your mother's permission, of course.
Hell yeah.
He rules. But
So good.
But this idea is really cool. I like the idea because now we've given you all the backdrop. Now the example I just gave, put anybody in your position right now. Put anybody. You sitting at home with your husband or your wife. Some of you be like, he dies. Yes. I'm gonna get so much dick and pussy, whatever you're into. But no, that idea is somebody robbed from you that you then see all these years later after all of this stuff. And there's probably not much that makes you feel, I mean, you kill babies. You're a fucking monster. And then you see this thing that probably all of the lights in your soul, like if your soul is a house, in your Dracula. Let's go. Stick with me. If your soul is a house, we're talking Dracula here, all the lights are off. All the lights are off. And then this one light goes on, ping, and it's when you see her. Like, think about that. That's a crazy proposition to contend with. So,
Yeah,
but
I
no,
mean, it would be something. It would be really interesting for you, like, to be the other end, and you kind of see where Dracula's coming from, like you said. You don't know Harker for anything. He's just a guy.
He's not only is he just, that's you talking. How about a vampire talking that's 400?
He's an insect.
He's
an
nothing.
insect. He's an ant to Dracula. So he's gonna step on that ant to go get this girl who looks just like his love. And I love that part of it is beautiful. That he has this flame. He may have lost all his humanity. He throws babies to his Dracula little brides. He eats children. He's a complete monster.
He's a fucking monster.
He holds that love for his lost Elizabeth, and he's holding on to that somewhere deep inside. And then when he sees the photo of Mina, it all comes back to the front of his life. Now he's ready. He changes everything. He changes his whole plans. He wants to go to London. Why? Because he wants to find her. And that's so, like, think about how much a motivating factor that would be for someone to be immortal, to find someone again 400 years later.
I think he was going to London anyway.
He was going anyway.
He was,
right.
He was going anyway. And that's the biggest
difference. Do we know
difference.
why?
I think he's just going to eat people, right?
Yeah, he was just bored, I guess. He wanted some action in his life. And that's the biggest difference to the book, where in the book there isn't any of this romance between Dracula and Mina.
Right.
Mina is just the victim, and there's none of this like Dracula recognizing her or anything.
Mm-hmm. Which is that's a pretty great. Come to New Orleans with me, Louis. He just wants to go eat a different flavor person, right?
Try the cuisine.
No, but so getting back to what you just said, there is no romance whatsoever between Mina and Dracula. I think that would have been a tough sell to write back in the day too. I think it would have been a tough sell. By the way, is Bram Stoker Irish as suggests? Yes. He is Irish, yeah. The demented ravings of an Irishman or something, as Louis calls Bram Stoker. I love the meta there.
Yeah.
Nonsense. What about a running cross? Huh? I'm fucking Christian Slater that acts like Jack Nicholson, huh? Nonsense. Anyway.
I in fact enjoy crosses.
Yeah, that's right. I enjoy them very much, he says. Fucking Louis. Of course he does.
There's so many different laws and rules.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the questions that came up this week, but before we pivot off of that, as far as the movie goes, the setup is fantastic because I think there is a common misconception for people to just make an assumption that we're trying to make Dracula entirely sympathetic. We're not. We're just trying to make him a tiny bit sympathetic, just a tiny bit, because ultimately I think this movie, outside of anybody that Dracula seems to interact, everyone Dracula interacts with is his enemy, as far as I can tell. Harker he's using for real estate purposes, and then in terms of Mina, he's in love with Mina. Mina is the spitting image of Elizabeta, who, by the way, an arrow comes into the castle, says your husband's dead. You fling yourself from the fucking ramparts. That's a bit extreme.
They were dramatic back in the day.
She goes, I just can't. A very Romeo and Juliet, you know. Very Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare's like, that's kind of my idea. But no, it's cool. I wouldn't believe it for a second. I'd be like, no, stop. This is bullshit.
Who sent this? Who sent this letter?
Fake news. There's no way. But anyway, I don't know. I
would be, if I got false news about your death, I would be just in some kind of catatonic state over the shock. I wouldn't be even able to do anything to myself.
Throw yourself upon the rocks? No.
And splash all over the rocks of the...
Ugh.
Orges. And my tongue is orges. He did a lot of fighting near the Danube, I guess, right? Would that make sense? The Danube, the River Danube. I don't know the Orges. but I believe it's probably a river.
It's close. It's kind of close to where he was. It's a little short. Goes right into like Budapest, I think, right?
Yeah. Where's the Danube? That's what separated the Ottomans and the.
That's south of Budapest.
Yeah. Okay. South of Budapest. Got it.
Yeah.
What about Bukovina? I'm kidding. I just wanted to say the word. It's a good word. Bukovina. But as far as the film goes, it's such a great setup. But we have to talk about Francis Ford Coppola, his vision, the way this is shot, the colors, again, operatic. The last movie I described as operatic was Midsommar. And not even for the visual treat of it, but more for the emotional content of it. It's very larger than life emotions. And I think that this is visually operatic. I know 8 years ago when Matt and I discussed this movie for 3 hours, by the way, just shows you how much you can talk about one movie. I know the word opera came up quite a bit, but it's really a good descriptor. I mean, just the visual imagery, all the superimposing shots, eyes in the clouds that they seem to see, his face as they're raining down on the maze, and the cute lesbian friendly kiss, and how would you describe some of this stuff? Like, obviously all the stuff that happens with Harker, it's all, you watch like 13, 15 minutes, the amazing stuff with Dracula and his shadow moving independently of him. And then some of the grim portents, as it were, right down to the 35-minute mark is where Harker realizes, okay, I'm really in deep shit here, which is when they eat a baby in front of him. That's when things change, you could say.
He was okay with the 3 vampire chicks just trying to drain every fluid out of him. He was cool with that. But when Dracula shows up and throws a baby, he's like, whoa, this is going too far.
Yeah.
To me, I kind of realized what this movie, what the feeling of it reminds me of. And that is 80s fantasy movies. Like Labyrinth, Legend. There's something about the effects and just this ethereal otherworldliness that makes me feel a connection to that. But it's not. It's like a sensual fever dream. It's way more romantic, erotic, and scary and bloody.
1,000%.
Yes.
It's funny because when you say 80s fantasy, I'm not making the immediate connection outside of some of the visual stuff. But if you turn that on its head a little and talk sensual, almost eroticism, very Neil Gaiman-y, very, I don't know, like it does have a fantasy quality to it. It is very otherworldly, but it is very dark. I don't know, shooting
Legend,
dark, but dark.
Yeah.
Legend shot darker, right? Like Ridley Scott.
Yeah, and a lot of this, to me, it felt like a play or like a puppet show. Meaning,
I love it.
Like the backgrounds were very vivid, very, very like superimposed or matte paintings. Obviously, a lot of this was shot on a soundstage, like a studio,
for sure.
Yeah, mostly.
And it looks like it is, but purposely looks like it is, if that makes sense. They're not. It's uncanny is the word I would use. It's very like strange and unnerving a little bit. And a lot of like some shots, their way they move is backwards and then shown forward, so they're janky and things look slightly askew. The colors are very vivid. They're like you're saying. There's a lot
reds
of
reds are great,
beautiful. The reds, oranges in the beginning when you see the soldiers fighting the Turks, like. That stuff it makes you uncomfortable, but it's beautiful at the same time. And this whole, that's what I would call this movie. Beautiful, but uncomfortable.
That's a good way to say it. And it is difficult. It is difficult to describe, but it's funny you say puppet show, almost like, I love that because it's sort of turning the lights on in my head. Puppet show is almost to assume like we know, it's almost like we, in soundstage, like we know it's got a soundstage, almost artificial quality, but somehow it works. And you could almost say like when you go to the opera, you're very pulled into it, but you're completely aware that, but you're also pulled in. It It's weird. It's like, you're part of this thing that's not real. You're part of a thing that's not real. That's weird. It is a really weird movie.
It has that same magic as those 80s movies where you can tell that it's a soundstage, where it's just a world of its own. It doesn't feel like it takes place in the real world.
That's what it is. That's the best way to describe it. Because it's a soundstage, it doesn't take place in the real world. It takes place in something artificial. And thus completely from imagination, so to speak, right? It's not, if you were to see hallmarks of London, if you were to see an actual castle, if you were to see things that would remind you of anything, you'd be like, wait, I don't know. Even when he is walking the streets of London, he's not, it looks weird, it's janky at times, and purposely so. And then you have a lot of these sequences where you have when it's right at the 40-minute mark where they're kind of just rolling through, laughing in the rain. And what's your take on this scene? Because it's so, I don't know, man. Like Mina and Lucy are rolling around. They're frolicking. They're fucking frolicking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of janky camera stuff. They share a sensual, if brief, kiss. The animals are freaking out at the zoo. It's raining. We got this janky speed cam that seems to indicate Dracula is moving quickly, but we have his face in the clouds raining down on them. Literally, he's laughing, watching them have fun. The ship's getting the Carfax, the Demeter. Is this the Demeter?
Yes.
It's getting tossed to and fro on the waves, and he is sort of becoming his monster form. What the fuck is going on in this sequence, right?
I don't honestly know. I don't understand why it's shot like that. It just makes you uncomfortable. Maybe it's to show like the transition of him coming across the ocean to make you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, but that's what it works for me.
I have a thought. Go ahead, you first.
Right?
I think it's just his power, a display of his power and influence over everything.
I agree.
The way he's making these these Victorian repressed women behave completely out of control. In that era, that was completely unheard of, that they were running around half naked and kissing each other in the rain.
Sure.
Not going to happen. Well, maybe it did. Probably did. I hope it did.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be very uncommon, and probably there'd probably be a lot of deep shame associated with it.
Frowned upon,
I'm with you.
for sure.
I think what we're seeing is, I think this is all starting to work together now as I formulate this thought, but it's shot in an artificial place because it's not supposed to feel real. And the reason it's not supposed to feel real is because this super powerful thing, its presence. Dracula's very presence. Dracula, we should probably talk about how he became Dracula, because it's going to play into this point I'm about to make. He literally renounced Christ, stabbed the standing crucifix within the church, renounced God, said he would rise again from his own death, and all this shit. I mean, the ultimate impassioned curse against. And then he became Dracula. Now, his
whole thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. His whole thing.
I'll say his whole thing about, like, you know, I did this for God. I fought all these battles for God. I do everything for God.
Right.
And he turns his back on me while I'm away and kills my beautiful wife.
Yep.
Like, it's the whole, like, I've been abandoned by God already, so I'm going to go 100%. I'm going to renounce him, and I'm going to arise from my death and then be unholy. And I love that. I love the whole, like, be damned by God. Yeah,
absolutely. And now that creature, one of a kind as far as we can tell, right? It's probably not a common, and I think, and I don't want to blow past that. One of a kind. Only his passion and hatred in that moment, a mere mortal man, got the eye of God to turn on him and say, poof. Think of how that's crazy, right? That's crazy. He's the only one. That makes him very powerful. Let's just assume he is. I mean, we know the brides, he can make his own and shit. And then now his very presence is approaching. And it's driving everything crazy. It's driving the weather crazy. It's driving the animals crazy. It's driving, as Maj described, these Victorian proper ladies crazy. He is transforming into a monster. All of this stuff is happening at the same time, and it's just this intense buildup to the very power of Dracula as he approaches. And that is so visually powerful in this movie. That is why the movie is super successful. To me, there's a bunch of things you could have done to make this differently. You could have done this differently and made it a little less operatic and more grounded. And that's another thing this movie is not super gritty. It's not a gritty picture. It's not a movie you'd go, oh, this is gritty, dark realism. It's not. No. But it shouldn't be.
It's like slightly above realistic. It's the colors are saturated. It's even the gritty parts like we're watching right now, where they're in the insane asylum with Renfield. It's gritty, but it's kind of got like a comic book feel, like a melodramatic.
It is, a very melodramatic movie. Yes,
yeah, like a soap opera feeling to it, and I love it. It works very well for it. It kind of, believe it or not, it reminds me of like some of the later Batman and Robin movies that were really god awful.
That's funny,
but this isn't awful. It's in that same vein as far as some of the aesthetics and some of the visual choices, but it works in this movie amazingly, where it doesn't work in those Batman movies. But
yeah,
it's definitely, it's got its own feel. It's something unique, and it's weird to find out that this is done by Francis Ford Coppola because it doesn't look like anything else he's done.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. This is and the music is so bombastic in this scene, like ba bum boom 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 boom, and it's loud. Like in the mix, it's overtaking. It's just bang boom boom as he gets closer, and that the music is phenomenal in this movie. It's really, really good. In fact, is this a scene where we can hear some of it? Maybe. Let's have a listen. You won't be able to hear this on YouTube. I have to cut this part. Well, at least mute it, but you get it on the podcast version. It's just I've never seen a movie like this, man. And that's what fucked me up. I couldn't appreciate it. I was a teenager. I'm like, I don't get it. Right?
Yeah, because I was the same way. I was the same way because I was very, very setting the settings of the Hammer horror films I watched as a kid, and Dracula being, Bela Lugosi, that kind of Dracula, and that kind of very stoic type of shots and film. And then you get this, and it's all over the place. It's very, very airy, very different. And initially, I liked it, but it was out of my league at the time for when I was like 12 or 13. But as watching it as an adult, it's amazing. It stands out.
It's funny because to me, this is Dracula. This is the Dracula I grew up with, and the older ones, I shame to admit that I haven't really even seen any of them because I was like, this is fucking Dracula. Yeah, I don't need to.
I appreciate that.
The Lugosi one's good to watch just because you get to watch film of the era, and it's crazy to look at the black and white.
No, I've seen some, and Nosferatu, of course.
Yeah,
Nosferatu's great.
I love that.
But just this stuff, the flowing shots of Lucy in red, and I don't know, man.
The costumes, I'm going to talk about the costumes at some point.
Please do. You can do it right now.
Okay. They are so fucking beautiful. Yeah. And the designer is called Eiko Ishioka. And do you remember when we watched The Cell and I was like, these costumes remind...
The armor.
The armor, yeah. And it turns out it's the same designer. I looked into a little bit of her story, and it's awesome. She's from Japan and started by designing like commercials and posters for like makeup and such. And she ended up doing a Japanese poster for Apocalypse Now, which then Coppola was like, "Oh, this is cool." And she was brought on as some kind of like art designer or something. But then Coppola saw like sketches of the drawings that sketches of the outfits that she'd made and was like, yeah, I want you to do this. And she just made this, they had a whole thought that the costumes are the sets, the characters in the costumes are the sets, and the focus was more in that, which I kind of don't agree because the sets are also fantastic. But there, at some point, Coppola didn't even want to have actual sets, just like backdrops, basically.
That's interesting because
like a theater.
The costumes are, that's a great way to say it, right? The costumes are, but that gets back to puppet show, like that thing in Scott's head, right?
It's true. There is that feeling about it.
But the costumes are so good that they draw your eye. When they shoot them, when they shoot the actors and the actresses close, even medium, you can see like, wow, look at these fucking costumes. They're incredible.
Yeah. And her design completely changed the look of Dracula. He was out of the black cape and the widow's peak. Right. Just the red long cape after him and everything. And even the crazy hair, that's inspired by kabuki, the Japanese theater.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yes, because there's a lot of, even his red robe has it had a samurai.
Yes,
kimono.
Yes, there is an influence. She was like blending Eastern and Western influences in a really amazing way.
Yeah, that's cool.
I appreciate that though, because like this is so East. It's almost, it's Eastern Europe, but it's so close to the Asian part of that country or that continent. It's not very far off.
Sure. Yeah. It's as east can be. But to maintain the highbrow nature of this program so far, so he beast fucks Lucy?
Yeah.
That's a weird call.
Is he like a bat wolf man together?
I think he's a wolf Batman.
Wolf thing.
Yeah.
Or a bat wolf man. However you want to say
Pretty hot,
it.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm like,
he's more wolf than bat. He's just got the bat nose.
So funny story about that. Originally they were only gonna have like various stages of old makeup. But Gary Oldman, on the early days of filming, he didn't have a lot of scenes and he got bored on the set and started coming up with ideas with this makeup designer, makeup artist, and they came up with the bat and the wolf creatures.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and later he kind of regretted it because he was not having fun inside the costumes.
I was going to say, those look pretty awful to be in, and how long did it take? Probably 12 hours to put on.
Oof.
Yeah, for sure. Damn. Some of the things that the listeners were asking us this week, let me bring a couple of them up here. But, there's a great quote here. Let me read this quote that we put together. They see, it is said, men who have been dead for several months come back to earth, talk, walk, infest villages, ill use both men and beasts, suck the blood of their near relations, make them ill, and finally cause their death, so that people can only save themselves from their dangerous visits and their hauntings by exhuming them, impaling them, cutting off their heads, tearing out the heart, or burning them. These revenants are called by the name of Opiers or vampires. That is to say, leeches, and such particulars are related of them, so singular, so detailed, and invested with such probable circumstances and such judicial information that one can hardly refuse to credit the belief which is held in those countries, that these revenants come out of their tombs and produce those effects which are proclaimed of them. This is from the treatise on the apparitions of spirits and on vampires or revenants of Hungary, Moravia, et al., 1746, by Antoine Augustin Calmet, a Benedictine monk. That's awesome.
Yep.
A
300
fucking
years
monk
after.
wrote that shit.
I found all this stuff, this historical stuff of the records and beliefs of the time, to where it was controversial even back then, but there was a lot of people who fully believed it. The early stories that I mentioned, many of them were in Serbia in 1720s because it was kind of like a military occupation on part of the country by Austria. So there was these like officials and military doctors who actually investigated these cases where the villagers were like, "Oh, there's a vampire loose, come and help us."
That's awesome.
And there's written records, there's stories. It's crazy, and they believed it. They believed that they were like, "Yeah, I guess this is real. I guess there's actually a vampire." There wasn't really. It was mostly just like somebody got sick at first, and then other people started to die, and often it was like, "Oh, somebody in a family died and then the other ones got sick. And because they didn't understand illness, they thought that the person who died is coming back from the grave to feed on them, to suck on their life force. And obviously, the plagues, all kinds of things going around, but they just didn't have the knowledge. And even these military doctors were like, well, I don't really understand how you got sick and died so quickly. So they would exhume the graves, and there's such a long list of these different things that they would find and what are the signs to recognize a vampire from. But they also didn't understand decomposition and how weather and temperature is going to affect that and what can happen to the body. And somebody who had died a longer time ago could possibly be in a better stage of preservation than somebody who had died recently. So it made them believe like, oh, this is actually a vampire. And then they performed the rituals of staking the heart, or often especially the Europeans and then Americans had weird urge to consume these body parts. Like Europeans ate the mummies, which is why there's so few left. It's so fucking funny.
Yep.
Egyptians are like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but a part of the cure to make this sickness end would be to take out, often burn the internal organs, especially the heart, and then mix the ashes into water and drink it as a tonic to cure you.
Delish.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Mummy dust. Let's go.
That's insane. To think of the basic knowledge we take for granted today that they just didn't have.
And this, like the latest cases were 1890s in America. The vampire panic of New England is not that long ago.
No.
But and the most recent one I was able to find was 2005. This family in Romania, their dad died and other people started to get sick, and they went and exhumed the body and impaled the heart and did all that, and they got caught because somebody ratted out on them and got sentenced to like 6 months in jail. And the police was like, yeah, this still, we're trying to, we can't really control this. It's still such a prevailing belief.
Dude's like, we have iPads. I don't fucking know what's going on anymore. Why is this happening? Damn, that's intense. Some of the other stuff from this cheat sheet you provided us with was since he asked what is it about vampires that makes them so sexy, we talked a little bit about what the appeal is, but let's talk about that specifically, because he says it seems to be particularly associated with being sexy and seductive across all media types, movies, books, RPGs. What do you think that is? What is that? He's asking you. And then he has an anecdote about how his first, coincidentally, his first makeout session was in this movie when he was 14. So well done, Cincy.
Damn. Hell yeah.
Why? What is it that makes them sexy? I think that's I guess this is probably a better question. I think when Cincy says that, I think he's thinking of a dude vampire. Right?
Okay.
Because I think what makes a woman sexy is just so much more simple and obvious to us. We go, look at her. That's what makes her sexy.
Yeah,
So-
exactly right. She's
But the
beautiful.
vampire specifically, let's talk about that.
No, but there's a lot of like women too. I mean the
course.
Carmilla, the story.
Yeah.
That's a female vampire.
Yeah.
And that probably broke a lot of the like repressed sexuality norm of the time, and that's alluring.
Of course.
I think because a part of the vampire legend feels a little bit tied to the whole incubus and succubus thing, to which is sexual.
Of course.
Like a sexual demon preying on you and having intercourse with you. And I think it's partially that, but then it's just the way it's built from there. Like the lore has been building up over the past 200 years from the more animalistic beast to this suave, sophisticated character. But then it's also just the way a vampire attacks you.
I think that's what it comes down
seduces
to.
you.
Seduction.
A neck bite
Absolutely.
is simply just it's more sexual and sensual than being torn apart by a beast. I'm sure there's those werewolf girls who prefer that, but
Dig your fucking black dog nails into my fucking tats. Yeah, I think that exists. I don't shame it. I mean, wherever you're into.
they have the whole alpha thing too.
Yeah, it's true. But fucking a vampire is alpha as fuck. Nobody tells that dude what to do. You know, it's just a little more subtle. It's not like in your face. So what is that? It's a funny way to position that question. I think what that is I think exactly what Maja was saying. I think the nature of the I think for the vampire to blend into society, and to feed on people's blood and not get found out, it has to do it in a way that is, I think, just the nature of the victim and the nature of the attack. I think you said it as good as it can be said. To bite somebody, unless you're going to really rip them apart, you have to get close enough to them. To be close to them, you have to have some kind of a lure. You have to know how to hunt, socially hunt, as it were. And I think that's just part of it. And I think that really is what it comes down to, that magnetism, and I think that's an interesting idea. I think a beast, I think a beast that you're balancing between, I want to kill it and it's revolting, to I am allured by it. Despite myself, I find myself drawn to it, I think is a complicated and cool conflict. Just to break it down to a basic meta story sense, we want conflict. We want drama in our very good stories. A very good story has drama and conflict, right? That's why God mode is so boring in video games, right? Without drama and conflict, and nothing is more conflicting than you killed Lucy, now make me a vampire. Like that, That scene, although melodramatic, and it should be, is good. And it's good because she has this revelation, like, you killed my friend, and that makes you a revolting monster that needs to be destroyed. But also, despite all of this, and perhaps there's some sort of weird destiny or fate thing playing out here, I am drawn to you. Now, I think he's using his I think he's got powers, whether passive or active, and they influence her. But
Right.
But I think that's what makes it so. Not only is it, I find myself drawn to you despite the fact that I am pretty happy with Jonathan and I'm going to marry Jonathan, that I find myself drawn to you, that in and of itself creates a type of drama. But if you want to up those stakes, what you do is go, oh, you killed my friend. Now, stepping out on husband aside, bad enough, but then to willingly stay engaged with him from your lifelong friend who was murdered by him is a way to up the stakes. And I think balancing the tension between allure and disgust is really cool storytelling. And I think that's the tool of what makes vampire stories so good. You don't get that with a ghost story.
There's the forbidden element.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's also it's a dance. I think it's the fact that, like you said, seduction, but he could just take her at any point.
Exactly.
Yes.
But he doesn't.
But he cares for her.
He wants to take her, but with her blessing. He wants to woo her. He wants to fall in love with him, so that he could just take her back to his castle and be done, and she could be a concubine or whatever. But he doesn't want that. He wants her to fall in love with him. He wants it to be real, and that's the difference between vampires and, say, a werewolf tearing you apart.
And then he even has that moment of morality of like, no, I can't do this. I can't. Even when she's asking, begging for him to turn her, he's like, no, it's wrong. Whatever he says.
It doesn't last long though. He succumbs quickly to that, which also doesn't surprise me. He's been alone for 400 years. I don't think, despite like I said, despite the lovely appearance of the concubines, there's no connection there anymore. Doesn't do anything for him. Yeah, I think really the best way to answer that is that it just creates more of an interesting conflict, without a doubt. What are some other good questions in here? Master of Rockets asks, what would the host do if given the chance that at almost immortality, almost meaning you can be killed violently, of course, vampiric immortality, or whichever vampire rules you want to go by, masquerade, underworld, lost boys, etc. So would we take, we kind of did talk about this. Yeah, I don't know, man. It seems pretty awesome, despite what it would do to you. So it's almost like you're trading something for something else, though. You're trading your brain is going to be completely destroyed by the ravages of time. but it would suck to die of fucking cancer too.
Yeah,
You
that's,
know?
that's the argument. You know, that's the poll.
You can always turn the people you don't want to lose.
Yeah, but then you're like, I love you too much to condemn you.
I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I'll turn Dean with or without his consent, and then I'll ask the other people if they want to be turned.
You'd fang ram me? That's
Yep.
fucked up.
Jesus Christ, Masha!
I don't want to be alone.
You don't have a
die.
choice, Dean.
It's weird. It's I don't know, man. I feel like if I think we are all, I think three of us are all still young enough to be like, boy, I don't know. But I think if you asked a 79-year-old dude who struggled just to move, an 85-year-old guy who's in pain, like, hey, I can drop this back 40 years and you'll never get old from this point, I think he'd say, fuck yeah. Not everybody.
Sign me up. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what makes me think like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I don't immediately say yes, because I think I'm 70 yes, 30 no, you know?
Yeah. I think it's because
Condemned
like
to the shadows is rough, man. Like,
that's another part
what
too.
is
Like,
your life? What is your life?
Depends on what rules, because if you go by these rules, Bram Stoker's rules, you can be in daylight. Actually, the thing about it is that he just doesn't have his powers and he's confined to whichever shape he's taken before the sunrise.
yeah.
So he's basically a mortal man with the powers of a mortal man. Or if he's in animal form, then he's stuck being an animal.
He's got to be a wolf that day.
Yeah.
He got to bury his poop and shit. That's
I was
funny.
gonna say, like, what happens when you're hungry? Do you go to the cabinet and look for the Alpo? You know, like what? What is? Where do you imagine being like? Oh, I'm gonna go out. I'm out there. I'm ravaging the neighborhood. I'm feeding, and then you forget to look at the clock, and then you're stuck in like dog wolf form, and then all day
Bummer.
you're starving, and you're like trying to figure out how you're gonna get outside to get food without arising
just
the
one
local
day.
population.
Just one day in an eternal life.
True. You're his neighbor, and all of a sudden you just see like a 6-foot wolf dog just taking a dump in the front yard. And you're like, oh man,
Picking off your
Dracula's
neighbor's
really having a
pets.
bad day today.
Picking off your neighbor's pets with your fucking vampire wolf face. That's scary.
There's
Also-
you don't even hear birds chirp anymore because all the animals have run from the area because you live there.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes or no, Scott?
Would
Would you take it
Shoot.
based on Master Rocket's question?
Yeah, I would take it. I think death is terrible. I think death would not. I like life enough where I would not want it to end.
Yeah, I think I would be. I think it would be. I think even though I know it would become a tragically horrible, I really do believe it would become tragically horrible for you on a given enough timeline to you can't make everybody vampires. Then you guys are fucking competing for resources. Then somebody's like, I'm going to roll the vampire nest now, but you can't even do that. So I think it's as fucked up as it sounds. I probably would too. I think I would take it. Yeah.
I would definitely too, because you can still die. Once you get sick
She's
of it.
like, I can still off myself, dude.
Yeah, and you can do it on your own terms.
I can sunwalk,
Dude,
motherfucker.
No,
Masha
really, you
takes the last 5 years of her life researching a guillotine and then builds one. And she's like, it was a good time. She puts her head in the thing and pulls the lever.
Yes, and you're still at the height of your power instead of old and feeble and sick and somebody else wiping your ass.
Yeah, I would probably fucking Dracula spider walk up to the top of the Sears Towers and just watch the sun come up.
I think it's an obvious answer unless you're worried for your immortal soul.
You could still, yeah, but there's no guarantees there either.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to do a lot of good in the name of God if you become a blood-sucking, skulking creature in the shadows, stealing people's life force away.
Well, I mean,
I would hand out so much vigilante justice if I had the power. Oh, there's
So wait, can we go back to
Fucking
the
Maja's
attractive
Batman.
part of vampires? Because you were like, I don't think it's the power. I just want to be, I'm an outsider.
It's
And she's
part
like,
of
I
it.
will bring down fire and fucking biblical justice on your fucking ass.
That was the younger me. That was the young me who like, oh, I'm just an outsider. But now I'm like, fuck these people.
Jesus Christ.
There was a woman dressed like a bat who had murdered 14 people on death row that were just waiting for their appeals. She's a
No,
harbinger
not
of
the ones
death.
that are already caught.
The serial
I'd go for the-
rapist got off on a technicality. Oh, did
yeah.
he? Ba-bum, boom, 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 ba-bum. As she walks through his fucking neighborhood.
Yeah, and then I would also have a lot of animals because that's the
Yeah, but then what if you vamp out and eat one? You'll never forgive yourself. Then you'll be on the top of the stairs tower killing yourself.
well, it's possible.
You drain little Maddie dead in a
No.
fucking fit of hunger. That's the problem. You see, that's the other thing.
Well, here's
Look,
the thing.
we can paint it. We can paint it all hunky dory, like it's going to be all the good rules. But it's going to be rough.
What if
So
you
is
have the
life.
bloodlust?
So is shitting
you
into
know?
a bag.
So is normal life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is
That's
also
what I just
true.
said. Shitting into a bag, not fun. So there's that.
I'd rather eat rats and be mortal than shit into a bag.
Oh my god.
What if you had to only eat spiders and flies like Renfield?
Oh.
I need lives for the master.
Dude, that's Tom Waits. I was trying to figure out who it
Yeah.
was
Isn't that
forever.
awesome?
And I was like, dude, that is amazing. And he does a great job in it.
That song, man, from Fight Club, he does it so good.
Uh.
Going out west where they appreciate me. It's really
Hell yeah.
cool. But the cast in this movie, let's talk about it. I know Keanu, blah, blah, blah. Gary Oldman is fucking spectacular. We all agree with that. How do we like Winona? How do we like Hopkins? How do we like some of the lesser characters?
I mean, Hopkins does what he does all the time. He delivers a very solid performance. He plays two characters. He actually plays the patriarch in the beginning, and then
Right.
he plays
Yeah.
Abraham Van Helsing.
Wait,
I think
why
he
are
does
we
a great
calling him
Van
a
Helsing.
patriarch? Is he a patriarch? Is that the
Well, I think he
proper
was the
term?
head of a church, or
Oh,
just a
okay.
church or a clergyman of some sort. But it looked like,
It's definitely him, though. You're right.
yeah, it was him. I think he plays a good Van Helsing, kind of a little eccentric, kind of off the beaten path, because you would have to be if you're hunting vampires. You wouldn't be a typical doctor or whatnot. But
That's all Anthony Hopkins though, because Coppola said that he found the book version of Van Helsing very boring because all he does is talk. So he told Hopkins to just be a little crazy, do whatever, improvise, do what you
yuck
want.
it up a
And-
little bit.
Yeah, and Hopkins, he's a fucking goofball. Go
He
look
is,
at his
yeah.
Instagram.
Chew
Oh,
on the
I know,
fake
it's great.
scenery, son. Chew on the fake scenery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's also coming off of Hannibal Lecter. So he's like, I'm the king of the world, dude. I just crushed in that movie. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want in this one. This fucking vampire horse shit. I'm going to have fun.
Let's go.
This ain't high drama like Silence of the Lambs, he's saying. Yeah, Hopkins is fantastic. He's fun, right? It's memorable. To stand out in this movie is difficult, I think. You know, when they're like, well, no, I guess Van Helsing, he's got a lot of opportunity to stand out, but you're not seeing a lot of, like, Hopkins isn't, you know, when they did what Hugh Jackman was Van Helsing in them dumb movies.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Those are action movies, and it's a young guy, and he's going to fight the supernatural. But Hopkins, he's like fucking, what's he, almost 60? He's like, I'm not going to be jumping off of horses and stabbing fucking Romanian. Like, what am I doing? So he had to, yeah. But anyway, how about Winona? She's
you know
absolutely gorgeous in this movie, huh?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say pinnacle Winona Ryder, but also her acting in this, it really stood out for me because we all know as Winona Ryder as being a very beautiful and talented girl, but some of her acting in some movies is flat.
Because Winona was a bit different in '92. The perception of her was a little bit different. But I always liked Winona Ryder because I always thought Winona Ryder was kind of the weird girl. And I like the weird
stems from
girls.
Beetlejuice. She had weird.
It's not just Beetlejuice, it's Heathers, right?
Heathers.
She's Veronica. She's the outside.
Edward Scissorhands. You know,
Edward Scissorhands. That's, again, the when I was a kid, Winona was the only girl who would get me, man. You know, like
yeah,
that
right.
fucking
Well,
thing.
true.
I probably loved her at some point, which is pathetic. But that
No,
idea,
that's
like I
just
always
real.
like the outsider chicks like that.
Yeah.
And I thought this is what a cool moment for her. I always liked her in this role. I think she does a great job.
Yeah.
I think so too. I really like her, and she's so young. You have to think of that.
No shit, dude.
She's 19, 20, and it's
She's only 20.
yeah.
Fuck.
Damn. Jesus.
And the thing that always comes up is like, oh, they didn't get along, him and her and Gary Oldman, and there was a tension and something, blah blah blah.
Maybe.
But there was, yeah.
I'm sure he was a nightmare
Because
he's so intense.
He's intense. That was the problem. He basically stayed in character the whole time, and Winona was intimidated by that,
Of course.
understandably. And later
I'd
on,
be
she's
intimidated by
yeah.
it. Fuck.
And she's like later on said that it was just like teenage drama, basically, that she was sensitive to it, which is completely makes sense.
Of course.
And I
when
think
you're
that
that
there's like this young vulnerability in the way she plays this character, which I know that some people don't like her acting in this, but I don't see any problem with it.
No,
Well,
I think she does great. She's great.
Yeah.
It's melodramatic. She's melodramatic, and
Yes.
it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be wooden. It's supposed to be a little over the top, like the rest of the movie is.
Yeah, and to Scott, I mean to the entire point here, he is an intense guy, and he's a lot older than her, and it's like that's going to be difficult. That's probably hard to act opposite of this dude who's just going for it,
Yeah.
and who's just a very intense character, you know, and bad alcoholism at the time, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had to kick booze later in life.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, he
bad-
did.
Oh,
bad
really?
with the booze,
I didn't know
bad
that
with the
about him.
booze. Bad
Also-
with the booze.
The reason this movie ever came to be in the way it did is because of Winona. She came across the script written by something hard. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, and she had pull at the time, huh? Even at that age, that's crazy.
She what?
She had pull, like
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And she was working on Godfather 3, but had to leave the production for some reason. And because she was young, she was convinced that Coppola now hated her, and was like just devastated by the thought that he hates her. So Coppola agreed to meet with her to convince her that everything's cool between us. And in that meeting, she brought the script of Dracula to him, and he was
That's awesome.
he was interested because he was like, oh, Dracula. So that's how it came to be. It was originally going to be just like a TV movie or series or something like that, a much smaller production.
yeah. It's funny hearing you say like problems with Oldman, thinking Coppola hates her. This is very young person. It's
I can
very
relate.
young
19 years
person.
old.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
can relate to that.
right. It's like relax.
I still can.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
It
normal.
is
It's
interesting
normal.
though. I would like to see a 32-year-old Winona do this movie. I think it would be way
yeah.
better. I know the young vulnerability works, but to see a woman grounded in reality, not so easily whimsically, swept off her feet, struggling with her own, like her. I think her struggle could have really been explored if she was a little bit older. That grappling with, if she was 30, 32, somewhere in there, like 10 years, give her 10 more years of life experience. But no, I think she does an adequate job for sure. I really like her. Lucy's great, but Lucy gets killed pretty early, as Dracula's very upset. But it's funny, every scene in this movie.
I just had a thought.
Yes.
What if Dracula was all along making a friend for Mina in Lucy? If his whole plan was to get Mina to live with him, and there would all be like a happy little gang.
It sounds like he wants to switch between brunette and redhead depending on the day of the week.
No.
I don't think I understand your statement.
I'm because Mina is obviously shocked about like him getting Lucy killed, but Dracula never wanted Lucy to die, like permanently die. He was making her a vampire. So
Right.
what if his whole point? Well,
You're being too soft on him. I think
No.
what he's doing is he's doing the classic predator thing, which is taking away anything she has that'll then push her closer to him. right?
It's possible, but
Yeah.
if
It's like a narcissist who's like, you can't see your dad anymore. You can't
You
see your
belong to me
mom
now.
anymore. I am it.
I am your life.
I'm still trying to have the romantic view of his behavior.
No, I think he probably, no, he was very angry at Mina because Mina spurned him and said, I'll never see you again. He's like, okay, I'm going to go after Lucy now. I'll take Lucy instead. It's a very
Yeah.
narcissist.
It's true.
It's very like, oh, you don't want me? I'm going to fuck your sister. How about that?
Right?
That's exactly what he's doing. He's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
fuck your friend then. How about that?
He's a little petty for a 400-year-old vampire.
But that doesn't surprise me either because there's probably like a retarded progress. And being literally, I'm not being a smart guy when I say that, right? Like in his own development because he's been stagnant for 400 years, right?
Yeah, he
He doesn't have interactions.
he's lost. You can see it with the way he talks with Harker. He's a little rambunctious, a little anxious. He gets aggressive very quickly because he's lost the subtle nuances of dealing with other people because he's been so alone for so long.
In the book, they used a description of child brain, that he has a child brain, that he is cunning and evil and smart in many different ways, but he still has this simplicity in his way of thinking because he is so removed from humanity.
I think that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think
It's very
that's great.
fitting.
Again, I don't know if I can think of what the greatest example I've ever seen of in dealing with something that's ancient. I still don't think I've seen one that made me go, wow, this seems like how I would imagine it. Again, I can't say what would or wouldn't be the reality because nobody knows, and how could you possibly know? But I don't think there's a movie that jumps out at me that's like, wow, isn't this guy really, doesn't his age really seem to be a factor in
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying? Like his
Yeah,
like thousands of years old and what that means.
Because like if you take Interview the Vampire, Lestat is very human still, very petty, very jealous, very, what's the word they used him? They used to call him a word, it's something prince, like the brat prince they would call Lestat.
Yeah.
Because he was very human and very childish. But you're right. I've never seen a portrayal of a person who is so dejected and so turned away from humanity that they lose their humanity. They all still have some sort of it because they're all human. But I wouldn't even know what that would look like. I wouldn't have any idea.
I have a movie to bring up, which I'm going to guess neither of you has seen, The Man from Earth. It's just a weird little drama movie about a man who is...
Not the man who fell from...
No, not The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Okay.
Not the David Bowie movie. This is 2007, and it's just always stuck in my mind because there's not an immortal but an ancient character who has just lived through eras, and he's just spending a night talking to his friends, and he's about to move on into a new life because he can't stay in the same place for long enough. And something about just the discussions in that movie and the description of how he's gone through these different eras really struck me.
Interesting.
And I would like to revisit that movie because it might be up there as one of the best
Cool.
Dude,
portrayals.
it's Phlox.
Yeah.
It's the
Oh, it's
actor who plays
Phlox.
Phlox.
Oh,
Is it Billingsley? What's his name?
Jerome. Oh, hold on. Let me find it here. But it's
Who's
Jerome Bigsby.
Bigsby. Billingsley. Dum. That's funny. It's funny that you brought up a Star Trek person because I will say, and it's not an example of this, but I will say after watching the third season of Picard, watching a 71-year-old Riker is really cool because he is a guy who is very 71 and in his age is a very cool, positive, wise, reserved, confident compared to like 30-year-old Riker. That's a cool example, but it doesn't fit what I'm looking for as in the context of Dracula. But
it shows the progression.
Yeah, it does. It is cool to see that character be like the things he smiles at because he's just thinking to himself, "You dumb kid, you know what the fuck you're talking about."
Yeah,
But you dumb 40-year-old. But it is. I would like to know what it would look like, but I'm not sure. Because I think it all comes down, like, it seems to disappear into caricature. Like I said, Highlander does a good job of, like, Connor has to see his wife die,
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, and that's
she gets
horrible.
old and dies. It's brutal. And they play that fucking
cry
heart-wrenching-
every time.
It's that heart-wrenching Queen song, Who Wants to
Wants
Live,
to live forever.
as she croaks. Fuck, dude,
Hey,
this stinks.
You're
Horrible.
wearing your boots I made you. You know, it's like, oh, damn, dude. I want to fucking cry. I'm going to cry thinking about it.
That's a rough. That's a rough. But yeah, I don't know. I think they become either Kurgan, which is like I kill everything. I'm Lestat. I'm Kurgan. I've lived. You know, I don't care anymore. To I don't know. I would like to see it. Like you got an opportunity there with elves, and I think why it's so hard is because if you write what you know, and who the fuck knows what that is? You can only really speculate. Excuse me. So no, I don't know. But
it's definitely weird. It's definitely hard to think of that. How would you I mean, because we all evolve relatively similar as we age, but not really. We all have different ways. Our own experiences, you know, kind of drive how we evolve. So who's to say if you had a terrible life, would you turn into Lestat or would you be Louis?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's tough to say.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, I was just thinking.
Yeah, as far as Dracula goes, I think it is, again, it's just still so much about the way this movie's shot and everything that happens in it is it's really intense. So much of the you know, some of the stuff we have on the screen now is things are ramping up, right? It's an hour and 20 into the movie when he decides Lucy's going to get it. He's mad. Mina, when she's outside of Dracula's presence, seems to be able to resist whatever type of pull is coming, right? As she puts distance between the two of them. And I think it's funny because that almost seems like it's almost like a metaphor for an abusive relationship. Like, oh no, he's not that bad. And then when you're removed from him or her, you go, oh, it's really bad. Like that seduction, and I don't mean sexual, but just that seduction, it starts to vanish when there's distance between you guys. It almost becomes revulsion. Actually.
Yeah, and because of and a person like that is gonna keep you enthralled and remove everything outside of this little circle of influence from your life. So you become blind to what your reality is. It's interesting how even a child will grow up thinking that something that they're exposed to or subjected to is normal because they just don't have any other experience. Right. And kind of a same thing can happen in a relationship like that, where you don't know anything better, and then when you're outside of it, you start to see the reality of like, oh, maybe this is not okay. Or actually, initially you're gonna be like, this is weird. This isn't normal. Should I just like, what do I do here? But the longer you stay, the more you lose the sight of what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. The deeper it gets, right? What do you think of the little vampire baby teeth growing over the top of the other teeth? Almost like they're going to replace them.
I don't like it.
It looks weird. I don't know
goofy,
why.
Right? It's like it's like a weird baby teeth growing. I don't like
a snaggletooth.
Silly. Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we should have been just had her regular teeth just starting to. You don't need to have them up there. Just have them kind of turning into points slowly.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, how could you do that? Like, how? Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter, but that is goofy for sure. And then she goes through that marriage, and he's like, "I will fucking end everything you know and love." You know,
dude, he really is a narcissist. He's like, if I can't have you, no one will. Not even Keanu.
Not even Keanu.
Drink this beer, and we'll be like married.
Yeah. So as Dracula tears Lucy apart, there's this moment where the windows explode in blood.
I love it.
And they're not in the bed. What is your take on the visual storytelling here? What is this, Scott?
I think it's just a turning point for me. They're not in the bed. There's no one actually getting murdered in that bed. It's just the showing of blood hitting the sheets. I think it's just a turning point where this is it. This is kind of like the end game. He's just going to focus on trying to get her. There's no more guys. There's no more you love me because I'm smooth, and no, I'm gonna take you now. You're gonna be mine.
Yeah.
It's also cut with Jonathan and Mina passionately kissing
Indeed.
as they get married, and I feel like it's this divide between and also something of the sexual nature, like Mina is really going for it. And then later on the references to her understanding her feelings for her strange friend now that she's married, now that she's had sex for the first time.
Great. That's a great catch.
Hell
by
yeah.
the way. Yeah. So I agree with both of you guys. What do you think the artistic choice is from Coppola to go, I'm going to just have an empty bed and exploding blood all over it? Because everything else, all the superimposing, all kind of makes sense if you're going, okay, there's some weird magic shit happening. But this almost seems like, check this out, kaplow, boom. Scott called it a transition so to speak. It's funny because it seems to me like this is like an opera thing to me.
Draw
Like
the curtains.
Exactly.
Yeah, the intermission.
It's a big, I think transition is a way to say it, and I would take it a step further to say it's a completely pivotal moment in the movie to where Dracula, I think this is the moment where, like, okay, he has to be destroyed. Like, there's no more misgivings about this. There are from her, of course, we're going to see later. He still goes to her in the bed, if I'm not mistaken, which is in the third act, but this is kind of the third act, right? This is the transition into it. It is, but I'm blathering. My point is it has an opera feel about it. It's almost like the red confetti shoots everywhere, signifying this bloody exchange, and it's just an artistic choice that is kind of cool. That's such an efficient way to describe it. I should be fired.
No, I get what you're saying. I like it because it's I see it as an unveiling. Here's the blood unveiling the end part where now, Harker is seeing Dracula in the streets haunting Mina. He sees it. You're right. He has this time where this is it. He has to be destroyed. There's no more getting around this. We have to move on this because he won't go away. He's still haunting her.
In other words, all of the subtle charm, all of the manipulations have all been unmasked in raining blood. Right. It's saying everything. This is not a subtle seduction anymore. This is now war.
We're on the hunt now. We're hunting him.
Hunt. Right. What are you saying, man? That she's been buried alive?
Awesome. Cariel. I love him. I love his overacting. It's perfect for this movie, especially.
Do you have a favorite scene in the movie, Maja?
Oh, no. Favorite scene? I mean, well, the one we're watching right now, which is Lucy
so good
coming down the steps in her bridal gown. It's one of the best moments in the movie for me.
I agree.
Yes,
I think I was. What I asked a question probably ill-timed as it's playing over here on the screen next to us. But how about you, Scott?
You know what? It's cheesy to say, but the same thing. I don't know if you remember when I was streaming, but when you would follow me, it would show Lucy with the cross in front of her screaming.
I remember the GIF. You made the GIF.
Yeah, exactly. So this is right up my alley. I love it. I love her outfit is beautiful,
incredible.
Again, Eiko Ishioka.
I gotta look her up. It's just this whole scene. I mean, even looking like the shit kicker from Texas, he's got like a tasseled leather jacket. He's got a big Bowie knife, and he's it's. Even look at Van Helsing. He's got the kind of curved brim, like big hat. Everything. Incredible. Everyone looks like they're dressed to the nines, and I love it.
And they all have a unique appearance, right? It's crazy what this movie could have really fucked up with these characters if the costumes weren't great, if the actors were kind of just like meh, and that happens in movies where there's an ensemble cast. But all these guys. I know the Doctor, I know the Lord, I know the Texan. They're all distinct, and they all look very distinct.
One quick note about the costumes and the sunglasses that Dracula wears. Because there was a comment, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, that the 90s sunglasses take him out of it or something like that. But they are historically accurate. Yes. They are called pince-nez They don't have the arms. They pinch your nose and stay on like that. And even the blue color is accurate because it was believed to like help with light sensitivity. And those types of glasses, although maybe not sunglasses, but like spectacles, were originally developed in Europe during the 1400s. Yeah. So those have existed for a long time. So have because those aren't round, but like the round Aussie or Lennon glasses.
The Lennon glasses, yeah.
Those aren't from the 60s or the 90s. Those are also from the Victorian era, and they were called T-shades.
Nice. I had circular red and circular blue shades.
Of course you did.
Dork.
Hell yeah.
So one of the most fascinating parts about the scene with Lucy in the tomb is how they use the rewind effect. They have, in other words, they shoot it in reverse, and it looks that creepy way she gets back into the coffin is just a reverse shot, and the vomiting of it makes her look inhuman, and that's important, right? You need your vampires not necessarily. You want your vampires to blend in on some level, but you need them to also have an inhuman movement about them.
That's a callback,
phenomenal,
to Tobe Hooper in Salem's Lot. When the two Blick boys come through the window to get Danny, they're come through the window, but it's shot backwards and then shown forwards, and it looks so weird. All the vampire, when the kids are, they're all shot in reverse. It's a little homage.
I didn't know that. It does look janky and creepy.
Yeah. All the scenes are shot backwards. So like anytime the kids are vampires and they're doing it, they are moving backwards and then shown forwards like this. It's a good way to just make normal movement look not normal, and it works very well for vampires.
For sure. Good stuff.
Oh yeah. Oof.
Well, they had to chop poor Lucy up, and
he's so cavalier. He's so nonchalant about it.
The doctor
I had to cut her head off and burn her body. Oh, it's my best friend. Sorry.
Yeah, she was in great pain. Then we cut off her head and took out the heart. Oh, peace.
Where's the brandy?
It's funny when he asks Harker, when Van Helsing asks Harker, he's like, "Did you ever?" He's like scratching his head, like, "Did you ever taste the book?" Because he would have just reached across his table and just stabbed him to death. I think if he did, I think that was you may die right this second if you answer incorrectly, and then I'll just doctor talk my way out of this. You know, pretty crazy.
I'll be honest, Keanu's hair takes me out of it. Everyone else looks really
awful.
good.
It's so
and he's
bad.
He's got a 1991-92 haircut, and it's atrocious.
It's atrocious.
Everyone else's
and what is with the spray paint in his hair?
Yeah, it's just like powder.
It looks like
on his hair.
He looks like he was spray painting the ceiling, and he got a little rain down on his head a little bit. Stupid.
I was putting the pop ceiling up, and I can't get it out of my hair now.
It looks awful.
It's bad.
Spray paint his head with a fucking 12 gauge. No, I'm just kidding. I love Keanu, but it's silly. Yeah. But this is when the Van Helsing crew, and there's so many classic shots that herald back to old timey, walking through the graveyard, these men with torches and top hats on the hunt for the monster. It's really awesome. And in the pursuit at the end of the movie is the setting sun, the racing against time, the music, trying to chase down the train, knowing he's going to come at sundown and you better get him before then. Just this whole third act, I think, is phenomenal. Movies they have to start well, they have to run well, they have to end well. It's so easy to fuck up any one of those things, and this movie just doesn't fuck up the ending. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but before that, some more questions from people. So, a few years after this, Coppola produced Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, says Retro Alien. Where do you think that film goes wrong compared to where Dracula goes right? Sadly, I don't have enough of experience. I only saw Mary Shelley's once a long time ago. I think I fell asleep halfway through and never watched it again. But I would like to watch it.
Was De Niro in that one?
Yeah.
I don't remember enough of it.
Over here, you motherfucking cocksuckers. You fucking got plugs in my fucking neck.
All I remember is him doing some really weak kicking to some like store guy. That's all I remember. Frankenstein.
I got fucking plugs in my neck.
You touch my daughter, I'm gonna kick you.
He fucking does that. He says, "Look at me. You put that fucking torch down. He does. He always slapping his fucking lips. Always do. Nikki, I asked you to come out here. You asked me. I didn't ask you.
I haven't seen enough of it though. I
Me
haven't.
neither.
I don't think I've ever actually seen it all the way through. Because at that time I was there. There was so many things coming out like that. Like you saw the Underworld movies came out.
That was after, but yeah.
The Van Helsing was
That
after
was
too.
also
But
after,
like,
yeah.
but those movies that time, I was a little bit of a purist with the old ones. You know, I was like, what's the point? You can't make it better than they did the first time. And the only movie who kind of not made it better, but kind of rivals it is this one for remakes.
Yep, good stuff.
If only Penny Dreadful had done the Dracula thing right.
Rory Kinnear is phenomenal.
Yeah. Frankenstein's monster in that show is
Phenomenal.
probably my favorite portrayal of that character. But Dracula was absolute shit.
He stunk.
So bad.
Dude, that show is phenomenal.
It's
Just like
incredible.
how downtrodden the Frankenstein's monster is and how he
Song made,
works
that fucker made me cry, man.
Rory and like
Kinnear.
and his jealousy of Proteus, like the second, and tears him apart, and like how he's so forlorn. He just wants to be loved and he wants to be part of the stage. It's like I watch that all the time, and I'm like, oh man, it's so sad. That show is fantastic.
Eva Green, yikes.
Ooh, yes,
Yeesh.
Possessed by demon Eva Green, even better.
Yeah. So some of these other questions we got to. How shit's Keanu's accent on a scale of 1 to 10? It's fucking terrible. It's a 1.
It's 10. It sucks.
The stylized practical effects still hold up. You know, which deliveries stand out. I think we've covered a lot of that, right? About the performances and such.
I'm only now noticing the accent. That's the weird thing about being from another country and not being a native English speaker. I was always like, what's wrong with his accent? I can't tell any difference. Now I can. Now that I mostly speak English.
Oh, do you wish me to stay so long? Oh, a month? Cool. Tell me, what kind of fucking waves crash on the Danube shores, man? If I take a train from...
I am an FBI agent.
I am a real estate agent. Oh, fuck he is for Dracula. Stupid. We are asked, is this the best adaptation I can speak of Dracula?
I mean, to me it is because I grew up with it.
Yeah, I can't think of a better one.
And also, as far as like adaptations of the book, this is the most loyal one for sure.
You know what? Like even me being like a purist and like the black and white and old school, you know what? I'm gonna have to change a little bit and say that this is probably the most entertaining one for sure. I mean, just all the things you think about. I mean, the originals obviously you can't touch because it kind of set a precedent. But in this, it's like you have great audio, great soundtrack, great music. You have great performances, great sets, great costumes. It's just, I mean, it fires on all 8 cylinders. It's a phenomenal movie. I think it's the best version for me. What about you, Dean?
Is it the best adaptation of Dracula? Without a doubt. Yeah, I don't even hesitate on that. And I like Bela Lugosi and I like Christopher Lee and I like those guys. But this is definitely there's just something so otherworldly and ethereal about this movie that it just draws me to it. It is, like I said, it's a live action opera in a sense, to where even though we know it's bullshit, we still buy into it because that's like Mina, we want to be deceived. It's weird, man. It's very meta. What's scarier, the book or the film? I don't know. The book's not scary. I mean, the film's not that scary. I don't think Dracula's a scary person.
Find neither of them very scary.
No.
Yeah.
But the book has a more eerie, there's no romance, so it's a little more bleak. In that sense, it might be a little more scary. And for the time, for somebody reading it in the time, I can't put myself into that perspective. It must have been to some people horrifying. Although I did find a review of somebody saying like, "Oh, it's so far removed from from a normal life that it doesn't bother you. Like a contemporary review. It was really funny.
We already answered the question about, going immortal, but Ryan Sutherland puts a wrinkle in that question by asking, what would it take for y'all to renounce the cross or what have you? What when the doctor's like, in 6 months at best, fucking kill me, make me a vampire. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know the offer.
Yeah, right. That's it. You want to? Sure. Cool.
I guess the offer,
I mean, is that possible whenever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, I guess his question is,
it's
what would there have to be a catalyst that pushed you over the edge?
His examples are bad traffic, huge lineup at the grocery store, a Lost Boys reboot. What would it take?
Nice. That's good shit.
Yeah.
Good question.
Still believe. Yeah, I would probably maybe if I could be in a Lost Boys
remake. What would
remake.
it take? A short black dress and fishnets, tall boots, and fangs, I guess. I don't know.
Right?
Not much, sadly.
Yeah, very little.
I would probably be like, oh, what's a good age to stop aging?
That's a good call.
Right? Like, we always talk about like when you're a vampire and you get turned into a vampire when you're like 70 and like all you do is have fucking joint pain for every day of your life for eternity, and you're just like you're hoping Van Helsing breaks through the door one night, just stakes you and the sun's up, so you just die. Right. So you're you got like fucking you got arthritis in every joint in your body, and like every
feel
day
the pain though. No, inflammation goes away.
You would hope, right? What if it's every day you have you have osteoporosis and you're just like, why was I turned into a vampire when I was 75?
Some vampire mythos is that each night you awaken, you revert to the form you were when you were turned. Yeah. So, and that's very Vampire the Masquerade. So in Vampire the Masquerade, if you had really long nails and a long beard and long hair, when you were turned, each night you wake up, you have that again. So you'd have to have a barber like every day. Like if you wanted to change it was pretty cool.
Like Claudia when her hair grows back.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Which one of you did it? Which one of you did it?
Which one of you made me?
Oh shit!
That's a tragic tale. Claudia's story is very, very tragic.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's but not in the Masquerade. The RPG, it's less egregious. It's just nightly. It changes each morning you wake up. So you could cut your hair and you're fine, but then when you wake up, it's back. Pretty wild.
It's a hefty barber bill, I'll tell you that.
No shit. That's the other thing, dude. Like we're all like, yeah, man, immortal. Fucking. What are you gonna do for a job? Where are you gonna get your money?
Do you have to be a Walmart greeter as Dracula?
Welcome to Walmart. Today we have great sale on shoe. I recommend shoe aisle 7. Do you like the kids call them not hush puppies? What do you call these? I don't know anymore.
He would have such a crisis of conflict, a conflict of his personality being like, I led armies into battle. I saved Christianity in the eastern part of my empire, and now I fucking wash cars at a park. I can't even hold a job parking cars. He just loses his shit. But
I'm sorry. What did you say is wrong with grapes? Like you have to take. You're the customer service guy. I'm sorry. You say 32-inch TV not picking up channels. I don't understand this world. Why did
that would suck. How would you make money?
Exactly.
With your superpowers.
What superpower is that? Making a fucking getting a fucking Bitcoin when it's $300 a coin?
Don't worry,
I have 2007.
I have turned 2 acres of my yard into a CPU farm to data mine Bitcoin. I will make money 300 years later.
The NVIDIA 2080, very expensive.
Just
GTX 4080.
That would be the hardest part. I mean, I guess you could if you were really good, you could kill people and assume their mantle. And
what?
I mean, not today. You could assume who they are. You could assume who he'd be,
Mommy,
up until
Daddy's
about,
really cold and pale. He's got bloody lips.
You shut up and go to bed. I'm your father now.
I command you, go to bed.
Now.
Fucking do the hand.
He's like pointing with the crooked finger.
You can just charm people. Use your charms and
You'd be a
seduce
grifter.
Yeah.
Guys, you sound like some piece of shit from like, I don't know, some sweaty pit Florida huckster. Some fucking straw hat Florida huckster. Just robbing old ladies of their money. He seemed like a nice boy. Did
Good
he?
old ladies. I will have my whole vigilante thing. I'm sure they got some.
Those shitbirds got no money. Your whole vampire existence is just trying to make a buck.
You just turn into a cloud of rats, just storm into someone's house to steal their credit card.
Exactly.
Data mine their information.
I guess what would you do? In a modern world, what are you going to go just take some castle in Edinburgh somewhere and put up blue flaming force fields? They'd fucking fly jets over there. They'd send a TAC team in. And it's like, they blew up my house again with something called Hellfire missiles. Fuck. I like it better when when the heathen shot arrows.
Or you go bubbling and you become famous.
Like Lestat.
Yep.
Oh man,
Rockstar, except he hid his true nature.
Mm.
Yeah, he pretended to be.
What would you do? You would just have to command you, give me your bank account. Double check the confirm account number, you motherfucker.
He's watching
Get me
the
your
television
fingerprint.
every morning to see the NASDAQ. Oh shit, my stocks are in there. Oh no, they're going to repossess my castle.
I'm going to kill that Jewish bastard. He gave me bad information on tech. No. He gave you the right information. You just don't know what you're doing because you're 800 years old.
Put your face on this device so I can unlock it.
Yeah, right.
I guess I could chop his head off. Just holding heads up. Putting dead hands into...
A 70-year-old man can't send an email. Imagine how inept he would be.
What the fuck is a car? He's so pissed. 4 fucking wheels.
I fly around and there's these drones all over.
Dude, he can't even be a bat.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy when you think about it. He wouldn't be able to do anything. They would see him like the fucking Mothman on the bridge. They'd be like, "What is that?" We have drone footage of what we think is a giant Batman. We'll go to live now with Stacy Keach, and Stacy Keach is like, "Well, guys, it's I don't know if it's Dracula out there. Let's find out." You wouldn't be able to get away with anything.
No. And then all those old hates would come. Show me on map where Turkey is today, motherfuckers. I've got present for them. I'm going to tell them what I think of them on Twitter. You can't call all the Turkish people godless heathens on Twitter, Drac. I have to advise against it. They may censor you. Who the fuck censors Dracula?
What do you mean my account has been disabled?
What the fuck are terms and conditions? I could be alive 800 years and never finish reading this shit. You can't be Dracula in the modern world is my point. Doesn't work. You gotta be a guy. You gotta have swords and horses.
No wonder we're so miserable.
Exactly. If Dracula could even make it in today's world, what the fuck are we gonna do?
It's so very hard to buy a house.
Yeah, exactly. The market is fucking kicking my teeth in.
They won't
And
give an undead man a fucking loan.
Yeah, exactly. 9%. What the fuck? At least I don't have to deal with healthcare.
Oh, shit. You know what? Maybe I just want to die.
Oh man,
it's not looking so good when you think about it.
Looking so good. Well, it gets to the moment where poor Quincy dies. He stabs this fucking dude and gives him a good blast. Gives him a good
These
stab.
gypsies are fucking dangerous.
Hell yeah, dude. They're tough motherfuckers, man.
Yeah, it's a hard life out there. I love that he's got his Bowie knife out.
Yeah, I like that kukri though. I really want one.
Yeah,
it's fucking awesome. The Gurkha. And then I like that scene where they're just like, look, her work's just beginning, man. And then she kisses him and drives.
Jesus.
Just so you're like, damn, she really did that shit.
I have a question for you. Can you guess who pointed out a mistake in that final scene and was like, oh, they originally didn't have Mina cut off his head? Somebody was at a private screening and was like, oh, your movie isn't following its own rules. You're supposed to cut the head off. So Coppola was like, fuck, and had to get everybody back together to shoot that scene.
Somebody in the crew?
No, some famous director.
Oh, somebody
else.
Some director that screened the movie.
Was it Martin Scorsese?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Who would have been there in the 90s? Like Spielberg or some shit?
Close.
Lucas?
Yes.
Fucking Jesus Christ.
Fucking Lucas, how dare you talk about following your own fucking rules?
Yes.
You gotta follow your own rules. You didn't have Dracula's head taken off like you mentioned in chapter 1. I'm not sure if that's gonna fly.
7 years later, after Phantom Menace comes out, his phone rings. It's Coppola. He goes, hey, remember that time you told me I was fucking up on my own rules? I got a bone to pick with you, pal.
He's like, go fuck yourself.
Now all their hair, in the end of the scene where it's snowing, all their hair looks like Keanu's. There's snow on their hair.
Right.
It looks like coconut flakes on their heads.
Yeah, it looks
It probably is.
Like you want to put some on your cereal or something?
I've got ice cream. You just hold your ice cream up. Coconut.
You fucking killed Quincy. How dare you guys kill the
I know.
Fucking bullshit. Kill all you fucking little foppish, crooked teeth fruitcakes. You're telling me this guy fucking tamed the West and he got killed and you're stupid? Oh, no, I guess they're not in England. They're
Well, he got it in the back, to be fair. He didn't even fight fair.
He's also fighting the tougher European, the Eastern flavored.
The ones that, like, even today, modernity hasn't caught up with in a lot of places. Like that Borgo Pass that they talk about in this is like the mountain pass. It's still 1400s there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like they have electricity and stuff, but everything still looks exactly the same.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep. So drives the thing through his chest and chops the head off. Ka-ching. So question for you is this. We see the cross heel at the end of the movie. We see the light of God shine down onto his little bat nose and fix it for him. And then we see our man Dracula looking human before he gets his head lopped off. And it's very like, is he de-vampired in that moment? Is that God shining a light down on him? I mean, God created him, right? Is what's happening here? Is he getting redemption? Is he entering the kingdom of heaven? And if so, how?
I think he repented at the end. He's like, where's my God? I'm done.
Did he? That's the question. Did he repent?
I don't know if he repented, but he was still, even though he called away from God in the beginning of the movie, he was like, where is my God as he's dying? And I think they kind of had like a resolution and let him be human so he could die. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't really know. Maybe it's something about the purity of real love or some dumbass stuff like that.
I'm about to car crash you. I'm just kidding.
He's reaching for the button.
No, he in his love, he became more human, and maybe through that humanity, he found redemption.
Interesting, because you would think I think in redemption he would have to do something to get the redemption, right? He gets wounded and has to retreat, and he retreats into the church, and he just accepts death at that point. So, is him accepting death a type of redemption to put a stop to all this? Is what that this is the part that I'm like, I'm not sure about, I think. And I like it, but I'm trying to wrap my head around like the light on his face at the end and why, I mean, far be it for me to try to understand the workings of God, who's maybe like, you know what, you tried to defend Christendom from the heathens, but and then you went astray, but I'll give you you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a redemptive quality to him at the end of the movie. I don't know if he does something enough to warrant the light of God shining down on him.
Does
is
he
what I'm
need to?
saying.
Maybe
don't
maybe
know
it's
if he-
enough.
maybe
Maybe it's enough for ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, you might be absolutely
Yeah.
right about that, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did he ask for forgiveness?
I
No.
don't think he said that, but in his whatever he says in the end,
Give
calls
me peace.
calls out for God.
He says, give me peace.
Maybe at that point when he realizes he's injured, he's like, I'm done. I've had enough. Like, God, I'm sorry. Let me return to your embrace.
Right.
Because he did start as a very godly person.
For sure. A passionate man. And in a fucking phenomenal picture, man. A really cool movie. And it was a pleasure to talk about. We blasted right through that. It was still long, but we didn't take a break to talk about membership. We didn't warn the people about the Latte Industrial Complex or the Latte Brigade, which is coming to your house every day, trying to take your money, make you fucking piss this stuff out.
You should though mention that why this episode, how this came to be. I mean, this won the Halloween draft.
Probably
and
should have
fucking-
started with that.
probably should
Fucking
have.
Maja's got to brush her shoulder off in front of us to show her
Yeah,
fucking
I did-
She wants to
victory.
take her
I
victory
didn't.
lap.
I didn't get the chance to be like, oh, who won, whose movie won. I mean, my team won, and then this movie was voted by the members, and this is gonna be for everybody. But normally, the member vote would just be for the members.
Yep. And the reason it's going to be for everybody, and the reason you're lucky, is because we are taking quite a bit of time off in November. We're only releasing a couple eps, so we're going to make this one available. We're probably going to make the next one available and stuff like that. But just listen to the scheduling announcement because I don't remember all the dates. But the schedule announcement you'll see ahead of this episode, unless you're listening to this months later, in which case that episode will disappear because it's silly to keep those in the feed. But anyway, no, this has been a ton of fun. I know I want to approach this differently than going by every scene and talking about every shot because we've already done that. So I like this idea of kind of approaching with a different thought process in mind. It's been a fun discussion, getting into the nature of vampires. And I'm sure we could still talk more about vampires, which wouldn't surprise me in the least if we could, because there's still
The
so
whole
much.
vampire history. I have so much more about that.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, maybe we can talk about that if we've been thinking about maybe sitting down to do a watch on Carpenter's Vampires because
Yeah.
it's not a good movie. Maybe we can use some of that time to talk about the history of vampires and
Absolutely.
and
That'd
we'll
be
do
good.
that. But yeah, that would be cool. Unless you want to get to that now. Do you want to talk about that now a little bit?
No, I'm a little too tired for that.
Okay, I figured. Yeah, we're already. But this was a great discussion. I think you guys both brogo, bago,
We
bago,
brought some broth.
Dude, my brain can't handle that.
Borgo Pass.
Borgo Pass.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm stuck in the Borgo Pass, in the Brogo Pass, the Brotho Pass. What's it called? Kidding. All right, this has been a ton of fun. We'll see you guys next time. Peace. Good job, guys.